California receives $162.9 billion in federal aid. That's more than any other state in the union.
But they also pay more than any other state. What do you mean?
Like the highest, they also have like one of the highest GDP per capita.
The mayor of a city, they can go campaign for their career. They can try to advance their career and shit. But like, you got to be there when crises happen. Sorry,
she flew back.
She left.
Does anybody even know how easy it is to find?
Which means it is less responsive to the individual values and desires of the economy and causes economic downturn, which causes deaths.
Okay, no one engages with this because there's nothing that you could ever show Fabian to have him believe that FEMA is better at disaster relief than the private market, because he has logically deduced from human action that the private market is always better no matter what. He rejects all empiricism completely. You guys shouldn't let him get away with saying like, oh well, I think my ideology like causes less deaths or whatever. Like I don't think he would care if people didn't have a social safety net and then died, because that's in accordance with the non-aggression principle, and the other cases aren't in accordance with the non-aggression principle. I think he cares more about the NAP than he does about people living or dying.
What?
Well, wait, can you answer this? Hypothetically, let's say acting in accordance with the NAP caused one more person to die than not acting in accordance with the NAP. Would you be in favor of the NAP still?
Cause more people to die
Okay, so I was right. Then what do you mean go fuck yourself? If you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description.
All right. Well, welcome to Give Me a Break. How y'all doing today? I hope we're all ready. We're all excited. We got some interesting things to talk about. We're going to start with squatters' rights versus property owners' rights. I'll let everybody give an intro and just say who you are and then give your intro. And that's how we'll start. We'll start with Tyler here. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm Tyler, average debate enjoyer, and just like the homeless, I think we should incinerate squatters.
Big fan. All right, Crop Duster, how you doing?
Hey everybody, I'm known as Aircraft Sparky online usually, but I'm quitting streaming, so it doesn't really matter. There are no such thing as squatter rights. Don't own property, get fucked.
All right, thank you so much. Fabian Liberty.
Yeah, I am Fabian Liberty. Check me out predominantly on YouTube, and X is mostly where I'm at. I don't know how to surmise what I'm saying in a sentence, so I guess I'll just say, private property rights are supreme. The concept of squatters' rights is kind of really dumb. However, there is a certain point where an individual abandons their property, and when they have kind of intersubjectively communicated that they have abandoned their property, then it's not really a squatter so much as anyone is capable of homesteading said property. So like if you abandon a house in the woods for 30 years and the vines are coming up along the walls, like it's not really your property anymore because you clearly didn't check up on it and you communicated that it is abandoned. And so anyone should be able to then get that property as their own, homestead it. There you go.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. You know what also I appreciate? The fact that I've now heard the word intersubjectively used in a sentence out loud, and not just in a book. That's the thing that makes me the happiest. Grid, how are you doing here? Tell us.
Oh, man, I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic.
So there are no such thing as squatter rights in the United States of America. There are adverse property laws, but those have nothing. There's specific legal requirements that you must fulfill, and so I don't know what position you could take on this other than that, but I'm interested to hear them, and we'll go from there. Let's rock and roll.
Fantastic, I appreciate it, Mr. Nonfon.
Yeah, as I told Gibbs, I don't have any strong opinion on this, but I guess I'm still invited here to debate anyway.
Sure.
Certainly, I don't like. I guess I could imagine cases where squatters' rights could be justified. I don't believe in like this innate principle of like private property at the expense of all other things. But I think generally private property is good and something to be respected because it typically benefits society. But there could be justifiable cases of squatters' rights. That's all I have to say.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Priya Katya.
Well, good evening. I almost said afternoon. Oh my god. And my opinion on this is basically there are situations in which having adverse possession laws might be beneficial to the economic, contribution of people to the area, which would be one thing that I could imagine a scenario in which they could be used to disincentivize situations where a landlord might leave properties vacant instead of renting them out to people for lower rent amounts, like if that's what the market is saying. Which I think that should be disincentivized, because if you leave shit vacant, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table as far as the economic prosperity of the area, because there's not enough people in the area that could be there when there's shit vacant. So I could imagine a scenario in which, it disincentivizes that to have adverse possession, because like if you have a tenant in there, you're not going to have a squatter. So, I mean, that's basically like one of the main things that I can say, which might be possibly good. But that would be in a very narrow circumstance. In addition, yeah, if you leave your shit vacant forever, like you use it, you lose it. Like if you're not even aware of what's going on there for years and years, at some point, yeah, somebody should be able to homestead that shit.
All right, thank you so much. And the big JC.
Yup, I'm the big JC, premier League of Legends streamer. I don't think that squatters' rights generally should be a legal thing. As mentioned, adverse possession is what it's known as in the law, colloquially known as squatters' rights. I think generally speaking, they're used as a weapon against property owners rather than what I think they were intended to do, which was to provide a use for unseized and unowned property that was just laying unclaimed for a long amount of time. If there was a way to make it so that was the only way that it came into play, like if you were dead and you had no relatives and somebody wanted to move into your house and they were there for long enough, like if that was the only thing that happened, that'd be one thing. But as I'm realizing through personal experiences, that is very much not the case most of the time. So I'm very strongly against it.
Hold on, we all agree. So hold up. My name's Tyler. I think that property rights are immoral. We need to unite as. We all agree this is boring.
Yeah, I noticed that. So that's fine. That's fine. I have a backup topic. I figured that might have it.
Well,
there's this weird phenomenon that happened after COVID where certain progressive states tended to change their land laws, and New York State being one of them. There was a recent case where a person's parents passed away. The house was vacant for 2 months, and when they went to go check out their house, there was people living in there. They tried to evict them, and New York State sided with the quote-unquote squatters. In most normal states, most red states, you have at least a 10-year period where a piece of property. So in Oklahoma and Mississippi, it's 10 years. And I live in Oklahoma, and I used to live in Mississippi. That's why I just picked those two states. Sure. But when you look at it, there's a period of several years where, like in New York, I think it's 45 days that someone has to reside in an area for them to be able to claim squatters' rights, if you will. And that's really the ridiculous deal about it. And Texas is probably swinging that way because they're turning blue because they're allowing all them fucking Californians there.
Well,
also, Texas is hella gay.
We've turned more red, just to clarify. Although on this issue, we seem to be the most left state because for some reason you get squatters' rights after 30 days, and I only know that because I worked at an eviction law firm for 2 years.
Did anyone ever watch that Chinese dude that had his sister's apartment? A squatter moved in, and it was like he vlogged the entire fucking thing. Like,
he was Asian Andy.
Asian, that's it. Yep. Hilarious. But squatters aren't people that just didn't pay their rent. These are people that are intentionally abusing the laws of these specific areas.
Well, okay, just to play devil's advocate, let me give you a scenario. Let me give you a scenario, all right? Because this is a scenario. Maybe I'll give you the reason why I wanted to do this topic, and then we can, if it's still fucking, we can move on to the more exciting current events one. I worked at an eviction law firm for a long time. Listen, content. I don't want to sit here and have a circle jerk. That's no fun. I want to hear some arguing. But I worked at an eviction law firm, and then when I started with law school, the first thing they've had us do was read a book called Evicted. And the book's slant is let's just go with left. And basically, these people would they would spend all their money on drugs, and then they would say, shouldn't get evicted. Now, if you look at her plight, yada yada. And I said that this is crazy in class pretty recently, and they just all started laughing at me. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I was the only one that thought this, and I just kind of wanted to take a poll. But it seems like this has really shifted since COVID. People's ideas like on who deserves what. I mean, on the property rights here. I don't know. I wanted to see how we're going, but that's not exciting. All right, let's just fucking move on to the more exciting one. LA fires. Whose fucking fault is it? Whose fault is the LA fires?
Yours, Gibbs.
Mine.
I think that saying whose fault is it directly, besides, I mean, like, there have obviously been, changes due to climate change that have kind of like exacerbated the conditions that result in fires. This fire, what exactly started it, we don't yet know.
All right.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, Joe Rogan said, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, they had that guy on there that said that all it takes is the winds shifting, and you would not stop a fire from the edge of the desert all the way to the coast in Southern California. Yeah. And it fucking happened exactly the way they said it was going to happen. Now, I lived in NorCal, and I was talking about this on my show today. I was in Hayward, California, owned a house there while we had all of those really ridiculous forest fires or whatever up slightly north of there. And we had they were closing schools because the smoke was so bad. The most hilarious thing I'd ever seen. But that was all of it.
Jesus.
Should have been laid directly at California state laws preventing the proper disposal and maintenance of the forest, of the dead wood in the forest. They had that shit piled up. And the Forest Service actually knew this, but California state law says you can't remove any of that. You can't cut down dead trees. You can't do all this stuff. And it's just a very poorly written law. Now, at least one of the fires was they know for a fact was arson. They caught that guy.
Well, that's interesting because that leads to so what we've seen a lot of lines. So I guess there's two places I want to take this right here. One, are the conspiracy theorists right? With why this stuff's being burned down, and two, whose fault is it? Is what Trump's criticism and Musk's criticism of why this is going down accurate or not? I guess.
Okay.
By definition, the conspiracy theorists can't be known to be right yet because all they have is a theory based on fragments of evidence that they've pieced together to form already established conclusions.
What do you mean by definition they can't be right? They're either right
sadly,
or wrong.
more times than not, the
if
conspiracy
it was
theorists have
proven
been
right, it
correct
wouldn't be a
recently.
conspiracy theory. It would just be fact.
Not really. Yeah.
So hold on.
It was a conspiracy
correct.
theory when people said, the China virus or whatever you want to say,
A
right?
Chinese
So it's
bioweapon designed to kill Americans is not what coronavirus.
Yeah, that's
was.
different.
Well, no, you
than
can
it
take-
came
hold on,
from
hold on, hold on,
China.
hold on.
It started
No,
in
shush,
China.
shush.
Those are two different things.
Right. Well,
Shush. Wow.
what
Shush.
I mean to say is, right? It is either true or it is either false. I won't say which is true or false, but it is either true or it is false that the virus came from, was a zoonotic spreading virus from, a large distance and ended up in the wet market, or it is either true or it is false that there was a leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, let's say the former is true, then the conspiracy theorists, presumably, that believed it came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology were always wrong, whether or not it was an established fact, whether or not it was a Wuhan, or whether or not it was a conspiracy theory. Vice versa, if it is descriptively true, not making it, or this is an if statement, right, that it came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, those quote-unquote conspiracy theorists
are still wrong.
Right.
No, they're not.
They didn't just say it came from the
approach, how
lab.
you get to the conclusion matters. Them being vindicated on their insanity after the fact doesn't mean that they were right all along.
Wait,
A fact is either true or false.
Hold on.
You just did. Did you see my lips form the words?
Once they're correct, they're conspiracy conclusionists. That's it. Solved it.
I like that.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
I'm gonna write that.
they're either right or they're wrong. Plenty of people can be Plenty of people can
That's a
be
good one.
right for the wrong reasons, right? People can guess or surmise, from one pattern or another and come to the right conclusion, while still their reasoning could be faulty or their evidence could be sparse, right?
Yeah, but with
it doesn't
conspiracy
matter.
theorists, the reasoning is the process that I'm taking issue with. I'm taking issue with
Well, then
them
take
piecing
issue
together
with the
fragments.
process.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Can you not fucking hear?
The
No, I'm just
conspiracy is a
explaining
reason
logic
why something
to-
happens, not the conclusion.
If you're gonna
because-
explain logic to me, explain actual logic. Don't just say
So-
a bunch of words and then repeat what I already told
Well,
you.
you said by
Well, hold on.
definition their conclusions are wrong by being
No.
a conspiracy.
Wait,
theorist.
hold on. So,
You said
okay,
no.
what if? Okay, let me ask this, like, to the people that are saying
That's
that
dumb.
they guess right. Let's just say, like, does it matter if like they came to a conclusion with the wrong data, but it's the correct conclusion? Like, say hypothetically, let's with this fire. The guy that committed arson. I don't know anything about this case. I didn't even know somebody did commit arson. But I've seen a lot of people on my little Twitter feed, my Facebook feed, saying, "Oh, this is exactly the area they should wipe out for new property development, right? And these people wouldn't build or whatever." And so, if there's like truth later that it comes
Fucking
out,
Nero, right?
yeah, somebody,
no.
exactly. If someone pulled a Nero, and like later, and they were like right,
Okay.
but it was like this guy accidentally did these other people.
No, you
did
don't get
that.
the claims
Like,
credit for
does
that.
it
No, it's
matter,
the
or,
same
like-
thing. It's
yeah,
like
hold on. I can clear this. I can clear this up real quick. Here's exactly why the process matters. If we have two people that both know that eating uncooked pork is wrong, is dangerous, and one of them got there through the scientific method of like validating and like researching, looking at the bacteria that are present and like comparing them like different, and one of them got there because God told them so, one of those methods is far more repeatable and reliable than the other, and I would much more
Yeah, no
I
shit,
would much
Sherlock.
rather encourage the
God
I
told you
also
so, right?
remember.
It's more repeatable,
I also
right?
was
Oh, I
taught the
triggered
scientific
Fabian.
method
I'm
in
so
third
sorry,
grade.
sweetheart.
Well,
Like, it's just she's
Yes,
being
yes,
silly.
yes,
but I
yes.
gotta ask
Yeah,
you-
yeah,
He's
Hold
right.
on.
Can I say what my
Fabian, what did you
Yeah,
refute
what's that?
there?
Here's
What
what
was
we're
the
gonna do.
point of
Hold on.
anything you
Hold
just
on,
said?
pause.
What was the
We're
point of
gonna-
anything Fabian just said?
Stop. Here's what we're gonna go to Katya. We're gonna go to Greg. We're gonna go to-
idiot! He
Hold on,
says,
hold on,
doing
hold on,
nothing to the
hold on,
conversation.
Hold on, stop. Shh. All right, Premier Katya. And then-
Gibbs,
then
I got
Greg,
a
then
question
Greg.
for you. Do you think?
Well, hold on. Let Premier Katya go. Then you can go next. All right. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, like, my problem with a lot of the times, right, conspiracy theorists say, "Oh, we were right." They take a piece of something, that they originally alleged. Like, let's say hypothetically, COVID did originate from a lab leak from the Wuhan, whatever the fuck institute. Okay. The conspiracy theorists are going to go, "Oh, we were right." When what they were originally alleging is that it was a virus that was introduced from there on purpose, specifically engineered to kill Americans. When it's like,
Bioweapon.
when
With-
99% of that is not true.
Yep,
If it was
yeah,
an
you're
act,
right.
like, right?
hold on.
You don't
This
answer
is-
that. You don't
this is
even call
hard.
it hypothetical if it
Hold on.
literally
It's
happens
convenient
with
for the
the.
conspiracy
Hold
theorists.
on.
And I'll
It's
tell you
convenient for the
exactly-
conspiracy theorists.
Hold on,
This is
hold on,
hold on.
hold on.
And insult
Don't give me
them and
people,
make
don't
their
give me
conspiracy
response.
more legitimate.
Everybody, stop.
Let me actually respond to this, please.
All right. I'm gonna let you respond real quick,
Let him
and then I'm gonna
respond.
go to Grid. And then we're gonna go to Grid
Yeah.
after that.
So again, this is nut picking, right? You're saying that all of the conspiracy theorists are a monolith based off of the craziest shit retards said on Twitter. That's not true. The overwhelming majority of people were like, "Hey man, there's a fucking virus that's like supposedly came 100 feet away from this place that's doing coronavirus research. Maybe it came from that place.
Do you
Doesn't that
sincerely
seem
think
kind
that's
of
what we were
logical?"
talking about?
That's not
You
what people
sincerely
are
think
having a
that's who we were
problem
talking about when we
All
said
of those
conspiracy
people were
theorists?
called
That's who
conspiracy theorists.
You thought we were talking about everybody who thought the virus came from China. Just that's what you thought. That's what you got.
Those
from what we said
were those
conspiracy
people
theorists.
labeled by the by the media
That has
and by
nothing
the
to do with the
institutions
question I just
conspiracy.
asked you.
Yeah,
That has
no,
nothing to do with the
yeah,
question I just
hold
asked
on,
you.
hold on.
Pandemic.
Don't be a bitch. Were they claimed?
You're
Were
being a
they
bitch. You're not
called?
answering a question. You're a bitch and a weasel. Does that?
All right,
Did you
I'm
think
not-
that's what we
I'm
said
not-
as conspiracy theorists?
All right.
I think
All
that
right.
you were. I think exactly as the argument that I laid out, which is that you were attempting to completely subvert your false statement that things can
you're
be
good.
false or true based upon the reasoning, not the actual conclusion, and then you move the goalposts over to this other concept. And while doing that, you engaged in nitpicking. So what I'm actually saying is,
Can you define
you engaged
nitpicking?
and like
Nobody's heard of that here but
nitpicking-
you.
It's when
Yeah,
you
It's when you
crazy.
take your balls and you roll it. I guess. All right.
Oh,
we're gonna
apparently
go.
it was wrong. Maybe I'm
We're
the
gonna go
only
to
one who
Grid.
doesn't know what it
Hold
is.
on. We're gonna go to Grid.
It's
Here,
okay.
let's go. Grid. What was your question? Now that we.
My question. So, while we're on the subject of conspiracy theories and conspiracy deniers, got to have both sides. Do you think it's odd that last week or the week before, they just reduced the firefighters' budget by $20 million in LA County?
Was that really last week? Hold on.
No, I don't think it's odd at all. I think that would be exactly why the fire got as bad as it did.
I would actually say, do you think?
Wait, so you're saying it's directly related?
Everybody's brain broken.
No. Here's the deal.
Are you on a?
No, I think it makes sense that if you have less firefighters to respond at the time a large fire breaks out, that fire would get way worse initially than it would have been otherwise with more personnel. I think that's logical.
The $17.6 million that was cut.
Dude, calm down.
Dude.
They literally just signed it like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. It's been within the last month. There's no way that budget could have taken effect yet.
Often that
so
cloud
it's not like
of smoke lingers
they had
over certain
$20 million
communities.
less of people and equipment on the street this week to fight the fire. That's dumb. That's ridiculous.
Well,
That's
if they didn't sign the budget, and then what does it have to do with conspiratorial?
Yeah, what are we alleging here?
The budget, but the budget's going to take effect immediately.
What are you alleging is going on and why?
Your own point, man. I'll just let you talk.
What are you alleging is wrong here?
What are you alleging is going on and why?
I asked Gibbs a question. What
he's
he
jacking off.
What do I?
Yeah, he's just asking questions. Don't you think it's odd? Don't you think it's odd?
Yeah.
Like,
I'll say this.
Jacking
I
off
don't know.
on camera so much you look like DSP.
That's impressive. I'm gonna say this though. I don't. As for the answer to that question, I don't know. I think sometimes things are coincidental. Sometimes they're not. But it's just like I don't have enough evidence to support this. Do I think it's odd? I think a lot of things are odd. At this point in my life, nothing would surprise me. If tomorrow the aliens invaded, I'd be like, it's Tuesday. Whatever. Like at this point, I just it doesn't. I don't know.
Really?
But yeah, bro. Nonfon, did you want to say something? Then I'll go to you, Tyler.
I was just asking, what is he alleging that was wrong here? If he's saying, like, don't you think it's odd that, they passed a budget with $17 million in budget cuts? If this budget obviously hasn't taken effect yet, like, what's the wrongdoing here?
He just brought something up and then knocked it down.
Do you think that maybe a disgruntled employee might have set a fire to prove that they're valuable?
Yeah, we don't have any evidence to even.
So that person needs to be charged with murder
we're
right
talking
now.
about conspiracy theories. I like conspiracy theories.
Well, actually, the topic is about who's at fault for the fires.
Yeah, so let's move this a little bit.
I would like to address
that.
Yeah, hold on. That's great. Perfect. We'll do that. Great. Sparky, let's go ahead and go.
Okay, look. So there is the I would call it the intentional mismanagement of forestry areas by not cleaning the forest floor of the deadwoods, but there's also the problem of the power companies, which have not been maintaining their lines, keeping them clear of vegetation.
What about the
They're
Trump
supposed
stuff?
to be doing this kind of stuff. The truck stuff. What
Trump?
Trump
What did Trump say?
Trump mentioned. So Trump mentioned during the campaign that they were holding back water, which was actually contributing to the drought conditions in California.
True, yeah.
He is correct. But that is not the only issue that they have. The center of California used to be a fucking lake, for Christ's sakes. All they've been doing is raping the resources of that state and not allowing nature to actually do the right thing. This entire time, the majority of their water comes from out of state these days through the Hoover fucking Dam, and also most of their power. The state needs to be allowed to fail because it's been mismanaged for multiple decades by a single party, and just let it fucking burn.
You know what, Sparky? That's totally fine. We'll let all of those rural red states drown with it, okay? Since they aren't self-sustaining either.
So that's actually an interesting question. All right, who here actually would support seeing a state fail in that manner?
That's the stupidest thing I've ever. Why? This is what an American
What do you mean?
Hold on. Here's what we're gonna do. I want to go to Fabian then, because he seems to be the only one that agreed with me.
What did you want me to?
So the question here I had was basically who is in favor, kind of what Sparky's suggesting is letting their state fail miserably, and then all right. So
it depends on the level of miserable you're talking about.
Letting them fail how?
If it starts to get bad, okay, but once it starts ruining people's lives, absolutely no federal government.
Well, let's go to.
Sorry, what
I
did
know
you say,
Fabian here was.
Like
I
Gray
said
was
we could
explaining.
quit funneling tax dollars into California. That would certainly help.
Montana.
pretty sure
California
California's in
gives
that
more in than they
taxpayer.
take out, so I don't know
Dakota.
how that's gonna happen.
All right, listen,
Uh,
let me just
we need
take
to
a little order
check it
here. We'll go to Fabian,
That's
and you
wild.
just raise your hand, and we'll go in order here. I'll have to respond to that. Fabian, I know you were
I
on the
think
side of
it's-
letting it
yeah,
fail.
Maybe it's just me. Let me.
Maybe just crank me up, Papa. Crank me up.
Just a second, I'll pull up.
I
the
know,
full
I know, I'm like the
No dresses.
the new age.
I'm making this
boomer
donation in
here,
hopes
right,
that
by
the stream
being
remains dress-free.
But like I remember kind of like there was this time where
Think you're
we
wrong,
had this
Paul.
too big to fail kind of
Wrongful
situation,
rage. I
right?
appreciate
where
it.
where we had the federal government bail out so many of these banks and credit reporting agencies and hedge funds are kind of like interconnected, and so the knowledge that you can engage in high risk behavior as a nation state with policies that can have disastrous consequences, and know that you will be saved from this by the taxpayer in some regard, is a corrupt incentive towards the very behavior that may or may not have led to this. Now, I don't know about this specific fire, how much blame percentage wise can be laid at mismanagement of the forest, right? California forests, not necessarily uniquely, but certainly it's an aspect. They have to burn. Like it is a necessary element of those of the biome there, that the underbrush has to burn away and then create new soil. And if you don't burn it, you can get fires started by a single dewdrop, where the sun will then shine through a dewdrop and have a magnifying effect and start an underbrush fire. If you have too much dry underbrush, you're just gonna get a fire. There's really nothing you can do. But also the almond farms and the irrigation systems. You want to talk about the Hoover Dam and how much water is brought in. A lot of that is because California has changed their agriculture into almond farms, which are, require a massive amount of water that wouldn't kind of naturally be there. And so there's just a lot of factors here. And so I just think there would be a corrupt incentive structure to bail them out in this regard. Now, I'm not saying FEMA shouldn't fucking save people and give them water, right? But we shouldn't have a large fund of money that is
Does anybody else
given
think
to,
that
rebuild
California
things.
should be considered a nation state? Because that's not what a nation state is to me, anyways.
It really
Texas
can't.
is a nation state.
Hold on.
What?
To your point, Fabian, California receives $162.9 billion in federal aid. That's more than any other state in the union.
But they also pay more than any other state. What do you
They also
mean?
have, the
New York
highest,
is
they have also have
second.
one of
Well,
the
you
highest
acknowledge
GDP
they-
per capita.
New York is second, Texas is third, Florida is fourth, and Pennsylvania is fifth.
Well,
Because they're way bigger
just-
states, they're also way
just-
bigger
hold on,
taxpayers.
just-
What do you mean? Although
just-
entire
The only
country.
time,
Hold on,
hold on, I wasn't done. The only time that California comes out ahead, or as not receiving the most aid, is when they do it per capita because of the way they do the accounting. But when you look at the totality of the monies received,
wait, this is
they- the
insane.
only-
What do you
they-
mean?
They have the
Per
highest
person.
population in the.
Well, yeah, that's
nation.
Yeah, obviously
Yeah,
they're going to get the most aid, and
so
B,
the
they're
average-
taxpayers. They are the biggest taxpayers. What do you
This is
mean?
what pseudo-intellectualism
No, they're not.
sounds like, by the way.
That's a horseshit way of accounting, because not every person receives that aid. They're just saying that they have for example, they have 3 million people, so $3 million comes in, and each person gets $1 million, and that's fine. But
No, that
that's
would be
not
$1.
what happens. You get
Why do
you
that
get
math?
$3 million in, and 100 people get the fucking money. That's how that works. And the only way they come out ahead is per capita. But total received, they have the highest amount of federal aid received. Period.
So I'm going to go to
That's
Nonfon
great,
here.
but
and
it's
let's-
Conspiracy
given-
theorist math.
Hold on.
everybody.
I know Nonfon's biting at the bit.
It's real
to fix-
fucking math.
So hold on. Let's go to Nonfon. I know he wants to fight this on economics here. I know he does.
Yeah, I mean, I mean,
Face.
I didn't prepare exact numbers, but my understanding is that California is probably the biggest, if not the second biggest, total taxpayer to the U.S. because they have the most people, and all our fucking rich, cool-ass tech companies are stationed in California, and they pay a lot in taxes.
Yeah,
it makes sense that they get
switches
more
between
aid
California and Texas
because they have more
depending on-
people
they're
and
all
more
going to
economic
Texas
output.
now,
No big
so
deal.
The fifth largest independent GDP in the world that used to be California is going to go away because majority of tech companies are
going
leaving for Texas because California is
Or
taxing the
on-pay-
ever living shit out of their own companies.
Yeah.
And
I don't
they're
entirely-
mismanaging.
I don't entirely
mismanaging
disagree.
everything, as you can see through the largest fucking fire that they've ever had recorded, and they don't even have water to fight it. Okay, it is. California.
I don't
is a
entirely disagree that
terrible-
California is mismanaging. For example, California has way
pays
too
the
strict
most
zoning
taxes
laws.
in out of every state.
California mismanages everything they do. That's why they cannot produce their own power. They cannot supply their own water. That's why a big portion of their state right now is burning, and they cannot fight anything. It is because
know.
directly the policies of the progressive fucking dipshits has been running that goddamn state for the entire 2 decades. It is a single party super
It's been
majority.
longer than 2 decades.
I don't know. How is it evidence of mismanagement that they can't make their own power? Why? I don't understand why the burden of California is to make its own power. Texas, which actually does make its own power and has its own power grid,
Yeah,
whenever
whenever
it snows in fucking Texas, they can't get power from other parts of the country.
Let me address this. Let me address this because I live in
Enron,
northern
remember
Texas,
Enron?
for fuck's sake.
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Enron,
So it's
Mike
very
has
simple. The reason why
Who's in
they
the
lost
grid?
power during that freeze is because Texas isn't used to freezing, for one.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
I hate to break it to you.
We're doing
windmills
fine.
are the- are
Wait, but
some
you
of the
recognize
most
they would have been able to get
non-
power if they weren't
Well,
self-sufficient on
so-
power, right? Because they're on an entirely
Because they're
different
on a
grid.
separate grid.
So okay,
They
hold
are
on.
on a separate grid.
Private grid.
So you
So let me-
recognize that it wouldn't have mattered as much if they weren't on that separate grid, right?
After they respond, I want to go to Tyler here. Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, you guys are going to a real small microcosm here. I think what we're falling for a little bit here is Sitch's law that we're arguing over something that's not defined. When we say let them fail, it doesn't. I don't think anyone here is saying like let human beings suffer. What they're saying is let the policies come out. Let the result of the policies, if you want to go soft on crime and do police alternative defund police, and your crime spike, as long as people have the opportunity to pick up their things and move, that is letting them fail to a
Yeah,
reasonable.
you voted for this
I'm
shit.
fine with that.
Exactly.
I'm fine with
what
letting
if you
people
make your
move, and
bed,
I'm fine with
fucking
letting
love it?
people vote for Republicans in
No,
California.
no, no. We
This is-
should never
Hold
let
on.
Californians leave California.
Once
But
they
yeah,
try,
I'll
what
make
the fuck
that- I'll
is
make
this
that very
insanity? This cannot be a real position.
once
It's a
that
meme.
No,
becomes a
they should not be able to
True.
because once they
that's not even constitutional, is it?
You're an
Absolutely.
un-American piece of
What-
shit.
What
Like,
at a time? Hold on.
shouldn't you want your fellow American to flee their terrible commie hellhole for the glory of the red states? No. Why if I'm born in California as a proud fucking God-fearing Republican, why do I have to suffer my life out because like 10 years ago a dipshit ass governor decided that he was going to fuck up the economy? Like, why should I have to suffer for that? Why do I have to stay there?
Why should the rest of the country suffer your shit politics? Why don't you fix your own fucking?
How are they
We have to
suffering
all
from
in
it?
one
little bro.
country.
It's called a democracy. We all have to
we're not
tolerate
a democracy,
everybody.
you
Welcome
dumb-
to
Well, okay, hold on.
America.
All right, so can I ask a
This is
question?
why
Let me
I say
ask-
you're
let me-
un-American.
Also,
let me-
I'm pretty sure the Constitution
Stop.
guarantees travel
Mute
between
people. Let me-
states.
I'm jumping in. Stop. All right. Okay. So I do have a question. Like, so y'all brought up the power grid thing. I don't really. Maybe I'm not understanding why that's applicable because, as far as I know, Texas is the only one that has its own power grid. I mean, I could be wrong. Like, I haven't done any research on this, but I think we're the only ones.
Well,
I don't think that's a fair comparison,
technically can't
unless
be.
you want to just say that the Lone Star Republic is better than the rest of the United States. Which
I think
we
the
already do.
comparison
Like,
is just
I don't know what y'all's.
mismanagement of state funding by given
Okay,
lawmakers, right? Isn't that the complaint
Well,
about
okay, so,
California?
let me-
is that
let's
they
move
mismanage
into- yeah,
funds?
let's
That-
move
Wait, what
into
about
mismanagement.
Texas?
Yeah.
What about
yet?
Texas's mismanagement? If you're going to be on your own grid, your grid should be able to withstand weather conditions
does,
because you
and
know that
so-
you're going to get fucked if anything happens.
on that
to
note,
it.
Texas has fixed that problem. We are now experiencing the freeze at a longer period of time than we did last time.
How cold
our
is
grid,
it there?
our grid is fine.
not.
Our grid is great. It's not cool, but it's fine. So like, I'm not worried, and it was fine last year. And that's not really the point I want to go with this. But if we are going to compare Texas and Los Angeles to California, all right, y'all remember Ted Cruz? He fled during the Great Freeze, right? And he's at senatorial level. I've always been confused about what he was going to do. I mean, was he going to get out there and start plowing snow? I don't know. But Karen Barr is going to have to reconsider her decisions after she went to Ghana. You know, like I was a terrible attempt at a pun, but either way, she's over there in Ghana. She left. Should she have canceled a trip? Is this an example of mismanagement by the Democrats? Or is this adding to the flames of the fire?
Okay,
I've
so first of all, you're talking about two different areas of responsibility. You're talking about the mayor of LA. Yes, the mayor of LA should cancel their trip and go handle the disaster happening within their own city. Where a senator, honestly, Ted Cruz didn't have a reason to have to end his vacation. However, it would have been a sign of good faith and show that, yes, he's supporting his constituents by, pushing for more funding from the federal government or whatever. But overall, Ted Cruz's responsibility, there wasn't much he could do in that situation other than advocate for more money, which he could have done from a fucking cell phone down in Cancun. However, the mayor of LA needs to be in LA while the disasters are happening there.
Fabian.
Okay, so after you mentioned this topic, I took notes on this. Basically, there are quite a few differences here. Ted Cruz went on vacation while Karen Bass was going to Africa as part of a presidential delegation as part of governmental responsibilities. Ted Cruz left during the emergency. Karen Beard left 3 days before the emergency really started. Obviously, there were risk factors before, but no fire broke out until Tuesday while she left it Saturday, which was 3 days prior. And Ted Cruz as well, allegedly, apparently diverted police to get him onto his vacation flight faster, while Karen Bass took a military plane to get back home faster, on which she was on the phone the entire time in communication with people on the ground in LA. It seems like she was in communication the entire time. Obviously, like, one could say, hey, there's like something that might happen, so maybe you don't go on like a delegation when there's a problem that might arise, but we can't say, right, that there was a fire raging and she went on vacation. Like, these are completely different things, right?
Yeah, and that isn't something that I said she should cancel her vacation or whatever it is she's on during the disaster. Yeah, she left before the disaster, and there's nothing wrong with that. Once the disaster stops, you stop everything and you fucking go back where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I just think it's bad PR.
Responsibility.
I don't care at all. It's bad PR, but like, what the fuck is a mayor of LA doing overseas, doing any sort of presidential delegations? Her responsibility is to the people of the city.
Well, all right, I'll push back on that. Every city I've ever lived in.
Presidential delegation.
Yeah, and that's not a criticism.
Hold on. I want to push back against that as the mod here. I just, somebody in my chat said something about it too, and I like remember every city I've ever lived in. They've all gone on trade delegations. Like, like Houston's got a twin sister city in China or something, and then they would go over there and they whatever. Yeah, and then maybe it's Japan. I don't know. And then Corpus Christi's got one in France or something. Like, they all go and do this kind of like, and they sponsor trade between the cities. And now how successful it is, who fucking knows?
It's
but
a career move.
I don't know that there's any real. I don't know if that's a fair
inauguration. They were there for the inauguration of a new leader in Ghana, I believe. So it was something, It
was a ceremony, a celebration. She was going, like, again, like the mayor of a city. They can go campaign for their career. They can try to advance their career and shit. But like, you got to be there when crises happen. Sorry,
she flew back.
She left.
Does anybody even know how easy it is to find? Yeah, wait, and hold on. Even if we're to take the criticism in good faith, which we shouldn't, that she should drop everything and return.
Yes.
You have any idea? Is it easy to find like a last minute flight from fucking Ghana to LA?
Like a military plane to get back.
Well, cool. Okay. I would level the same thing at Ted Cruz. Like, the only thing that really is bad, like, functionally, she probably could have done anything different. Same with Ted Cruz. It's just bad optics. That's all I'm saying is it's bad optics. But like he's on a fucking ceremony. That's it.
During the emergency.
Yeah, it's bad optics. So what? Like,
yeah, but what part of his responsibility? What part of Ted Cruz's responsibility could he not do from Cancun? What should he have done?
Part of Karen Bass's responsibility could she have not done on the airplane calling people?
Hold on.
Was she gonna go out there with a hose?
All right, let's
go to people from a military
Fabian. What do you think?
Someone who works on those communication systems.
Let's go to Fabian here. What do you think, Fabian?
Yeah, I've been just kind of sitting back because, like, the only thing I think any politician, regardless of whether or not they have a D or R next to their name, should get is me spitting on the ground that they have to walk on so that they don't get to have clean shoes. Like fuck all of these people. Like, I don't.
Yes.
Like this concept of
you're not in high school anymore.
Correct. I am not in high school anymore. I have grown up. That doesn't mean that what
you don't sound like
isn't true. Regardless, yeah. Like, I think of all of the things we can talk about in this controversy, I think this is an extreme partisan, media and social media driven distraction. We should be talking about what California's policies are. We should be talking about the fact that California enacted laws that made it difficult to actually clear forests. We should be talking about the fact that many of these homes were uninsured because of California's policies on being able to purchase certain forms of insurance, right? Like, we should be talking about the state and its the many ways in which it has exacerbated this condition, and this situation with their policies, not about who was on a fucking trip randomly or like who, you know what I mean? Like was on a phone. Like, I don't care. They're politicians. They all suck at their fucking jobs. The government fucking sucks at nearly everything that it does. And, we should be figuring out ways to fix it, not ways to like run scandalous like media tit for tat shit about who was on a plane or who wasn't there and what delegation they were on. Like, let's actually fix the problem, which is many of the retarded and or socialist regulation policies that help exacerbate these problems.
Did you really just go on an entire rant about how we shouldn't just be out here bitching and complaining? We should actually talk about how to fix the problem and then not provide any suggestions on how to fix the problem?
Well, so
I
just
literally
making
gave
sure.
multiple examples.
No, he said
I
don't do
literally gave multiple
socialism, bro.
I'm sorry that you were so focused on trying to find ways to dunk. Because
I don't have to focus. You make it so easy for me.
No, I understand that you're like you're stuck in a high school mentality. That's why you brought it up.
No, you can't use that one. I already used that. You got to come up with something else. That's plagiarism, all right?
I don't believe in
my
IP.
ninth period English
so.
teacher said so.
He really doesn't believe in IP. But look,
that's a good point.
It is an actual. There is actual truth
First
behind the
made
fact
all
that
night.
California did just pass a law making it impossible for insurance companies to be able to raise premiums on their fire insurance. So many people have lost their insurance policies because of this issue right here. The private company did away with a service because California made it to where there was no way for them to be able to make a profit off of it. Everyone knows that these fires have been willing and ready to come. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen. Insurance actuaries, they take these risks, they do these calculations, and they go, hey, this year is probably going to be it. And they go to raise their premiums, and California state goes, no, you can't do that because it's unfair, or we don't like it, or whatever the hell they want to say. And they go, cool, then we'll just drop all these fire insurance policies, and oddly enough, all these fires start coming up.
Well, it's a dual thing, right? It's a reflection as well, because like the largest homeowner, like the largest insurers of like homes is FEMA. Right? It's it's not FEMA. It's another organization that's like connected with FEMA, but nevertheless, it's the United States government, right? Like and what we do as taxpayers is we subsidize wealthy people to live in beachfront property and to live in areas that are beautiful but dangerous and expensive. And then you have this kind of problem exacerbated by having price controls in the insurance industry, and so you, the taxpayer, are going to have to bail out rich people living in nice neighborhoods because it's going to be us that are paying to have these homes rebuilt when it should be insurance companies in the private market.
I'm going to agree with Scott really quick. I'm going to really agree with Scott really quick because that's actually a problem that we've been facing in Florida as well with people who live on barrier islands, and then their shit gets flooded freaking 24/7 whenever there's a hurricane.
And then the government comes and bails them out.
Yeah,
it's like, no, fuck you. You should have to pay $3,000 a month for fucking insurance if you want to live there.
Scott, literally everything that happened in California with the insurance has happened in Florida except the price controls. But basically, we've been dropped off of as well.
Do we think that all this is attributable to the price controls, which I agree are bad?
It just had two insurance companies walk out of New York completely. Not New York, Florida. They are not insuring in Florida anymore, and at all. Like if you had insurance,
I've had my homeowner's insurance drop 2 times.
What did you just ask?
They literally just sent out letters.
I was going to ask to clarify.
We're out of Florida. And to Scott's point, that right now, today, this morning, there are people in North Carolina that are still living in tents, having to draw water from pump houses after the hurricane.
I hope I hope and pray with every ounce of my being that those are the people who believed all of the bullshit about FEMA coming to take their houses.
Okay, we're gonna go. Hold on.
Natural selection
We're
needs
gonna
to
talk
come
about
back.
FEMA in a second.
It needs to come back.
So
America is too far gone. We need natural selection. Darwinism, baby.
The big JC. No, I agree. I agree. Hold on, real quick. Like natural selection does need to come back, right? We need to have market mechanisms instead of all of this socialist intervention, so that people that live in dangerous areas will be disincentivized by increasing insurance premiums, and people will live in safer areas so that we have more homes, so that house pricing can go down, so that people can live in more reasonable places instead of robbing
the safe areas that are owned by Jeff Bezos
There's still
and his
subsidies
that are all
even
armed
within
with the
the
most advanced
private
weaponry on the
corporation.
planet because
That's
nobody
the
can
problem.
surmount them.
All right, let me jump in. All right,
Bezos gives to all the things that you
damn
love,
it.
buddy.
all right, thank
He's
you.
your hero.
All right, 1 second. All right, taking control here. All right, we're gonna come back to a lot of this here in a minute because I think we're gonna talk about FEMA in a second.
Why is your
Seems
mic
like
so low?
I don't know. Maybe crank me up or something. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go to Nonfon. I want to ask this question. We'll go to the FEMA thing in a minute because I think this is the natural progression of this topic. But what were you just asking here, Nonfon?
I just wanted them to clarify, like, what % they think is due to price controls on insurance, which I agree are bad, by the way, and like what % do we think is probably just due to the fact that the risks have generally increased in some partly at least due to climate change, right? Like,
well, no,
Yeah,
so
I
it's
think
not about
There
it's not a
is no
percentage
oral-
of it's what right. So specifically in the California example, what we're talking about is the aftermath, right? So if people have lost home insurance because of the policies of California, well, that's going to necessitate more taxpayer funds in order to cover the cost of the disaster. Right now, in terms of like what level of natural disasters are occurring, no one here is a meteorologist, and even those guys are like giving best guesses, right? Like, so to then add the idea of like insurance premiums, like what percentage of like property damage is occurring because of a corrupt incentive structure for wealthy people to not have to pay insurance premiums. Like, I don't know, obviously, but it is obviously a problem that is having a down or an upward pressure on home prices.
yeah, meteorologists should stop using empirics. They should logically deduce the weather from human action.
Right, I feel like the big difference that people have to do is they need to compare a situation because I feel like California and Florida are going through similar
I'd like to
shit.
challenge that.
But one
too,
has
like,
more price controls than the other.
I'm looking at natural disasters per state. We're going to abandon the entire southern coast, the entire west coast, everywhere with volcanic eruptions, everywhere with tornadoes. We're down to like 330 million people packing into like 6 states.
Well,
no,
look,
that's not.
I
So
grew
no,
up
like insurance companies can get relative risk, right? They are rewarded for being able to accurately predict the risk of insuring your property and then gain a profit by charging you slightly more than the risk distributed against everyone else living in the area. So obviously natural disasters occur in a whole bunch of places. What I'm saying is that what you have in the corrupt incentive structure is that if you are replacing that mechanism with things like FEMA as opposed to allowing the market to do that, then what you're doing is you are artificially lowering the price of living in more dangerous areas. And so because of this is having the opposite effect, where it's artificially raising prices in places that are safer.
Okay,
That is
so
true.
people in Florida will understand this. People on any southern coastal area will understand this. There's really only one nationalized insurance that exists. It's national flood insurance. And those of us who live in lower areas with lower above sea level, like if you look at New Orleans is 33 feet below sea level. It is a fucking soup bowl surrounded by a bunch of dikes holding back the water, keeping them from
Careful.
Well, okay, let me ask you this.
Thank you for saving.
All right, so just to play devil's advocate there, right? You're talking about like New Orleans, right? That's a good example, right?
It's a great example. It's the best example.
So here's the thing: New Orleans has existed for a while, right? They're one of the older cities here in the United States. Like, what do you do in this situation that the environment changed around it somewhat naturally? Like as time has gone on,
the environment has not changed there. No, it has not.
I mean, so
No,
The
the
Army
Mississippi
Corps of
Delta
Engineers-
has changed.
Yeah,
It
like
has
that's
changed,
like.
but not that much. If you look at the
I mean, what do you mean? Is the
navigation
alluvial
map-
fan like way bigger now and shit?
if you
like,
look at navigation maps of like the 1800s or the 17 or 1600s in that area, the same stuff still exists. The same waterways still exist. Nothing has really changed there,
It's
except
like
there's actually less land due to erosion through the
So, okay.
Mississippi.
all right, so and that's kind of the point right here, isn't it? Right. So it's kind of like Venice. Venice is like been existed for hundreds of years, right? And they're sinking. They're sinking. They've had all sorts of problems. They built those little bay things out there. It's been controversial. Like, what do you do to a city like New Orleans? Like, it's a city that's established here in the U.S. What is the solution? Just drown? Like,
But,
everybody has to
seriously,
move? Like,
the
is that
worst thing they
solution?
ever did was rebuild it after Katrina. Okay, really,
Well, no,
it
it
is
doesn't-
it is the exact same cesspool it was prior to Katrina. It's gotten better since what it was in the 80s. But New Orleans is Chicago without the news. Okay, no one talks about all the shootings that happens in the Ninth Ward and things like that. That place is freaking garbage. The best thing that happened to New Orleans was freaking Katrina because it sent a lot of their shit down to Houston. You're welcome, Gibbs. And so
did.
that's
That
why
did happen.
that's why a lot of their crime shot through the fucking roof. But the Ninth Ward just attracted new rats in that are just as bad as the previous. The place is fucking disgusting. I love New Orleans too. I love going to Jackson Square. I love, the history, the architecture, and things like that. But it's time for the United States taxpayer to stop funding this city that has failed because it was built in a fucking swamp, and basically they drained it. They drained the swamp. They put up a bunch of levees to hold back water and things like that. And they didn't consider, oh my God, hurricanes come through here. Where I grew up in southern Mississippi, the house that I lived in was 3 feet above sea level. My mother, during Katrina, I happened to be living in Japan the year that it hit. She actually rode the storm out on her dining room table, and she had to take a hatchet to her frickin' ceiling to get into the attic in the middle of the storm. Okay, living in these areas do incur some inherent risk, and the way that the National Flood Insurance has actually decided that they are going to compensate for it is they tripled their rates, where people can almost not afford to live there anymore. So price controls is actually, if you want to say, certain areas are strategic and require to be populated. In Pascagoula, Mississippi, in my hometown, you have two major things. You have the Chevron refinery and you have the Huntington Ingalls Naval Shipyard. Okay, if either of those go down, that is an actual risk to the security and of America. These are strategic locations. You can actually say the same thing about New Orleans because the port of New Orleans is one of the largest ports on the Gulf of Mexico. I think it's dwarfed by Gulfport, Mississippi, and Houston, Texas, if I remember right. I could be wrong though, but it's a big port city. You've got to have people in certain areas, so you have to mitigate that by making it livable. And unfortunately, because of the way insurance actuaries set things up and their calculations and whatnot, and when big events happen, such as Katrina to South Mississippi and Louisiana, the price of living has tripled since that time. And we're talking...
Yeah, but, okay, just for funsies here, like... How do you get rid of people in established cities? I don't know, like, if you could tell a city that's been there 200 years, everybody got to move now. Like, I'd be pretty pissed. Like,
hey, man, all people are just cogs. It's that whole middle brain thing where, like, you just tell them, hey, just pick up your shit, get rid of your whole family's tradition, Hey, Japan, there's too much water around you. It's a little dangerous there, so just completely get rid of Japan, start over in the middle of Asia somewhere where it's a little safer.
If you just didn't have price controls on insurance,
you act like you're owed a lifestyle.
Hold on.
We're gonna go America. It's too hard, so let's just give up.
We're gonna go. We're gonna premiere Katia, then you, Nonfon.
Sure.
Like, obviously in New Orleans there's a situation where like a big amount of the actual city is in danger, but in a lot of these situations where you get places that get flooded a lot, you or at high risk of hurricanes, you have places that are way higher risk than others. And because if we really priced insurance to the risk without like lower flood areas subsidizing higher flood areas. The higher flood areas would be absolutely freaking ridiculous. At this point, my policy position, this is partially informed by, like the areas in which I've seen people live in and that I think are really stupid. I think if a place keeps getting destroyed by hurricane, like after the home is like not livable, there should be a point where you just get those properties, eminent domain, and then state park, no more building. It's gonna happen again. Like it happens every time. Like in Florida, in like my neck of the woods,
State
what that would
park?
mean
Did you
is
just
like
say
a lot of
state
stuff.
park?
Yeah, a lot of situations where there's a lot of hurricanes that happen in the areas that get flooded always. A lot of those areas are currently state
people
parks.
to go camp where it's known to flood ridiculously.
I don't
During
think
a
that-
hurricane, you know about a
No.
hurricane like 4 or
That
5
seems
days ahead of
bold.
time. You're not gonna
Yeah.
go to the. You're not
You
gonna
might,
go to the.
well, hold
park
on.
and do
Surfers might not go do that. They like
Well,
to
then
surf.
that's their
Not-
problem. They can do whatever they want.
Let's go to Nonfon here.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say like we don't have to use like the force of the state to coerce people into moving. Like if you just don't have price controls on insurance, people will be incentivized to move. I'm not in support of the price controls that we have.
I
Okay,
think
I just want to say,
we have on
it's
insurance?
so
They're on,
fucking,
like,
it's so
housing
crazy.
insurance.
It's so crazy that like Nonfon and I are going to agree.
I was just wanted to clarify
which I never said, but like,
because I thought I heard it wrong. I was like, wait, you're not.
no, but I mean, like
price
that's the thing. Like when you're engaged in using these federal funds, you are necessarily moving, currency from its most valued ends, to another end, and the presumption is that like other people in the state, other citizens are going to value New Orleans or value these other places to such a degree that they're willing to have their resources taken from them in order to do that. But there's a just much easier solution here, as Nonfon pointed out, right? Which is just remove those funds. And if people actually value, if New Orleans actually is that valuable of a port city, if it actually, does produce something that is so valuable, then they will, build it. They will maintain it. They will keep it.
Well, what if it's not a
businesses
dollar
will
amount,
sell-
Fabian? What if it's okay, just for, I don't know, this is not.
Well, culture has a value too,
Yes,
right?
culture,
Right,
hold
but
on.
it has a value in
the
price.
food, like say the
right?
food,
It has
or like the history,
Right,
like
but
some
it
of this
has
is about.
Right,
Is
but it
there a
has a value
price?
in price, right? So like if let's say New Orleans costs 10% more and I can get the exact same job with the exact same salary, and then like Shreveport, right, is 10% cheaper and I can get the exact same job and the exact same salary, right? If I value New Orleans culture and the architecture and the food and all of these things more than I value that 10% cost of living, right, then I will move to New Orleans. And if I don't, I'll stay in Shreveport, right? So that cost is actually calculated in market mechanisms. Like if people value those things, then it's what's, like Austrians would call it psychic profit, right? It's like, it is what I want. It is satisfying my need of my most valued kind of like desire in that regard. I value that higher than I value that money. And if I don't, well, then I won't fucking move there. And obviously I didn't value it that much.
But your argument isn't like just that we shouldn't have price controls. Like I would agree we shouldn't have price controls, but you also like you want California to fail. You want to. I don't know how unironic the take was, or I don't know if you said this ever, but you want to restrict people from moving out of California, like. You
no,
like,
actually,
no,
I
didn't
just,
say
that.
that.
Was Sparky.
No, that was me.
Sparky?
That was me. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
so,
I'll own my position.
that's an unironic take.
Why?
No, why is that an
suggested
unironic take? If you fuck something up, why should you be allowed to go somewhere else?
Because
and
you're
do this?
essentially providing the
number-
justification for the descendants of slaves to punish white people that benefited from the products of slave. It's the same stupid
Wait, what?
justification, just with different
Oh.
people.
Sorry, can you make the
Also-
connection? Because I don't.
You cannot blame an entire group of people for the actions of a few that came before them.
Oh,
You're
okay,
trying
so
to
we're
blame
saying-
the entire state of California for the actions of politicians you disagree with. That's why I gave the example of a conservative
Try it again.
Republican who are you talking to? Yourself? Are you going crazy? Hello? Do you need help?
No,
Any
I've
assistance?
got a guy. I got a guy on my channel that's taking care of my audience, bro. Just chill.
Oh, see, when I need to talk to
you're
the
very
audience, I mute
excitable.
the
Are you
mic.
okay?
That's pretty weird.
Are you okay? Okay.
No, I'm not.
So allow me to steel man Fabian real quick for
Sure.
shits and giggles.
Good luck.
So what he is arguing here is we make it so only the 1% can live on the nice oceanfront property, and then everyone else has to be packed into 4 megacity states that we practice.
Yeah, that's what I said. Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely a steel man position.
I'm just fucking around.
All right, I'd hope so.
I'm just being an asshole.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these solutions for being in a high risk area really depends on the area, and I think a lot of these, like what we think should happen, can't really be discussed on a broad scale because you have situations in one area that don't exist in others. Like again, I'm going to keep using Florida's example with our barrier islands. A lot of those, if people could not live full time on the barrier islands, would still economically contribute a lot because you got places like Clearwater Beach where hotels and stuff would absolutely make enough money to be able to pay those premium insurance rates, and people would still be able to go to the beach because the beach is there no matter what. It's a beach.
Where are the left wingers at here? Where are my left wing brothers and sisters?
I know, right?
Where we say,
Yeah, I forgot you're in favor of price control.
I don't even
silence.
have to say anything.
Yeah,
Like, this is you guys are making all my
It's the
arguments.
I'm fine. I'm fine with
This is the quietest I've heard Fabian Liberty on any panel ever.
You got the lefties fucking
Fabian Liberty,
agreeing that like price controls are bad and that like
You're not gonna find
let me
much
some
in here
engines
about
here, guys.
price controls being good. It's not
Let me
a.
have some left wing engines here.
No,
guys.
I love
We
Margaret.
believe
I'm very
that the
confused about what's
states-
happening. I'm not gonna lie.
Look at the
You thought we
idea
would
behind-
defend price controls?
Hold on. Look at the idea
I mean,
behind
I'm about the
Medicare
price
for all.
controls, but
Look at the idea behind Medicare for all. We're saying that no
So-
matter what your ailment is, no matter what your pre-existing condition is,
Okay.
everybody pays the same price. That's how we want insurance to function as left wingers as well. We don't want you to have to pay more insurance just because you bought a house
let me
and happened to get hit by a hurricane. And
let
we
me
want
just-
insurance-
let me just segue this.
I don't
okay?
think that's
That's
it.
Healthcare
Medicare
is
for all
different
argument.
because everybody has a physical body, but you don't have to live on the beach.
Yeah,
Also, there's
we
just
did the-
more market failures in healthcare. There's like administrative cost issues.
New
There's
Jersey.
like
Hold on,
information
okay,
issues.
so hold on.
Hit by a
There's
hurricane?
adverse
Let
selection
me just
issues.
move this. Maybe just move this a little bit because we've already done the healthcare thing recently. So, like, okay, I like kind of get the sentiment that Sparky's come from. I think a lot of conservatives, at least like, that I can relate to, get the sentiment people need to live with their own mess, right? And then we come to something like FEMA, right? Trump is alleging that FEMA is broke because of the way Biden managed it. And so when we go to this, like, well, this is the organization that's supposed to like fix like shit when shit goes south for like somewhere randomly. How do we fix this? Like, whose fault? Or do we just let them, wallow in their failure and chalk it up as a loss? Like, what's the situation here? Who's at fault? What do we do here going on forward with FEMA? Like,
Well,
What do you
FEMA
got?
has been historically disastrous in every action they've ever done. I mean, if you really want competency, the last place you should ever look is the United States government. Okay? Government is bad. Take it from a government employee. Nothing works the way it's supposed to. Not even the goddamn military.
What about the
And
FDIC?
It's because the bureaucracy has become so corrupt and so fucked up that no matter what you do, it'll
I don't even
always
got to
get
flex
messed up because
libertarian
of all the
shit
red
tonight.
tape.
Everyone else is doing
Yeah.
it for me.
Wait. What?
We're pointing out
Government
the
is bad? Like
problems, and we're not
always? Like
able-
what is this?
So I work for the DoD.
That's
Okay,
great.
I see all kinds of policy failures that happen all the time.
That
Like
doesn't
the
mean the
DoD
government's
has
bad.
not passed a fucking audit. The past 7 audits failed.
Oh
And
my god,
somehow
you can't keep
they're
pulling out
missing
that
billions
talking
of
point
dollars.
like everybody doesn't know the response. I got accused of it being a Destiny response. It's so commonly known at this point.
the deal
Yes,
is
everybody
the deal
responds.
is
Jesus.
people,
Wait, also, none of
people
you
on
used
the
to- wait.
left tend to want to lean. People on the left, people tend to want to lean on the government for the answer. But the problem is the government is never the answer. In fact, the government is usually the problem. It is, you'll find more
Times
answers
where the
in
government
private
is the
industry.
answer.
You'll
None
find
of
more
what you
answers
said.
within
All you
private
said is like the
industries and
government
things
has
like that.
problems. That doesn't mean that the government is not a net benefit. I think the free market has problems. I still think the free market is a net benefit. So you just saying like, oh, I work in a
It's not a
government.
free
I see the DoD
No,
has
I am
administrative
telling
issues.
you,
Doesn't
believe
mean
in
it's
free
not a net
market,
benefit.
No,
You'd
they
be a
don't have
libertarian like I
administrative
am.
issues. They have
Well,
an everything
your
issue.
one-drop rule
The
is-
way that they carry out their policies is fucking flawed. Their purchasing, their acquisition programs are horrible. Okay, when you have to pay $35 for a single fucking bolt
horrible.
that you could
we
get
don't know how it's going to be without any of that shit. Like, where would we be? We don't live in that world, right? So
we wouldn't have the economic calculation problem.
Let me take
That's
something away from what what Sparky's talking about. So I own airplanes, and I have a certified airplane that costs me a fucking fortune to maintain because every single bolt, every item on it has a specific part number, and it has to be bought from a specific manufacturer, and they don't play. However, I can buy literally the same fucking fuel filter at Napa for $7. It costs me $40 fucking dollars because the government's involved.
Yeah, all you need is an experimental plane. You don't have to worry about it.
Wait, so did the government just arbitrarily decide that part was going to cost more?
I wasn't done. I have an experimental airplane where I get to do fucking everything on it, and it's cost me. I can build a whole fucking airplane for what my yearly maintenance is on the other plane.
We're just arguing opinions.
Okay, can you answer my question now? Did the government just choose that part arbitrarily? Yeah. I'll ask it again. Now you need to shut up so I can talk. Okay. Did the government just arbitrarily decide that part was going to cost more than the other one, or like why does one cost more than the other?
So I can actually answer this. It's because it has FAA certification stamps. It's built to a certain quality deal, and it's the cost of the stamp is what you're actually paying for in the end.
Okay. Well, but there's a certain level of production quality that's required to attain that stamp, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. So it's not that they just. It's not that the only reason that part costs more is because the government's involved. Is because it's gone through a lengthy process of approval to determine it more safe to use than other parts.
If you understood how much red tape and how slow the government was, you'd understand how ridiculous that statement.
To a degree,
I understand how ridiculous it might sound to someone like you. Yes.
To a degree, he has a point because, like, governments when we were working on Vogel down here, Plant Vogel, the nuclear plant, they were hiring all unions. So you're hiring unions. Unions have to follow every single fucking OSHA rule by the book. On top of that, you're on a nuclear site, so every weld has to be inspected by somebody. It takes a long time. Ended up going super over budget, but it's because they brought on literally the best people they could in the country, being the union trained guys that have to go through their 5-year apprenticeships and all that before they can even start working. So government jobs do tend to cost more, but at the same time, there are things that government does pretty well. We usually want government to handle the sectors that we want to be blind in the terms of like the justice system. We want the justice system to be blind and not judge based on a for-profit motive, because then it's just going to be the people that have the highest.
Then it'd be better.
In theory,
also, like, just to be clear, like, the position is not what the government doesn't have a cost. Like, obviously, regulating something is going to make it more expensive, but, like, that doesn't mean it's not a net benefit. Like, you still have more work ahead of you. You'd have to, like, prove to me that the added cost isn't worth the added benefit of safety, which maybe for some things it isn't, but I would suspect that overall it is.
For a nuclear plant, I'd argue it is.
I'm gonna go to hold on. Let me go to Premier Katya real quick. I know she's been trying to get
you can't just say that he solved the ECP and then just like let that go.
Well, right? you hold it.
I don't dispute that there's an information problem. I don't dispute there's an information problem. That's why it makes it less efficient.
Okay.
Hold on, Fabian. Let Katya go. You respond. I know you're ready.
I don't dispute the information problem.
So Tyler made a really good point here, right? It seems like one thing that really happens with regulation and with these standards are often higher in industries in which accidents are way less tolerated by the public, right?
Hold on, let her finish.
Can I please speak?
Let her finish.
Sure. So, right, in industries where sort of mistakes or like failures are not as tolerated by, the public, which matters because we live in a system where people vote. Like stuff like, obviously, if there's a nuclear accident, right, that could set back the nuclear industry decades, which I hate so much. And if there's plane crashes, right, this is terrible optics.
You hate the nuclear industry?
I hate so much that one accident can like set the nuclear industry back so much. I loved it, like the whole concept of nuclear energy, like that is what I advocate for, literally beyond any other like green energy or whatever. Like that's kind of the number one thing I advocate.
You should talk to ICO.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
We were just talking about that. It was it was enlightening because I'm less pro-nuclear than I was before after talking to Ico recently. But he was pro-nuclear and found out some interesting stuff. But you continue. I think that'd be an interesting combo.
So it's a situation where,
and then we're gonna go to Fabian after her. Okay.
Obviously, if there are accidents here, this sets back a ton of shit in these types of industries, and it sets back a ton of shit for the government. So the government's going to make sure that everybody's crossed their T's, dot their I's, which does cost money, which sucks. But that's kind of like the reasoning behind it. It's not really as much arbitrary as much as like kind of, I'd say partially at least, a reaction to how people react to these situations when care is not taken. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Right. So there is this.
Go ahead.
Broken windows is not necessarily a fallacy.
But yeah, all right, let's go. We'll go to Fabian, then we're gonna go to. I know he wants to respond to something a little bit earlier, and then we'll go to you.
I've talked a lot.
Yeah. No, I completely just dismiss that you can say that these regulations have this net benefit. I don't. Where are you getting that from? Where is this data or this idea that you're getting from that you've solved or at the very least, we'll just leave it at HIAC, right? The local knowledge problem.
I mean, I don't dispute that there is a local knowledge problem.
That fewer people die from random medicine than used to in the past. Can you pull up a study that shows how the USDA has made food more safe, please?
I'm sure I could find that regression.
A source on that, please.
Yeah, no, that's I understand that you don't understand basic economics.
Bro, he said the word.
Wait, Fabian, I know the local knowledge problem. I know the economic calculation problem. I know the information problem. I don't dispute those things exist. I just think that those don't necessarily preclude a regulation being a net benefit. So like the government can cause an inefficiency because of the local knowledge problem, but still have an overall net benefit because of savings in other areas or benefits in other areas.
So the presumption is that the market would not step in.
What do you mean? I mean, I don't think the market always leads to net benefits.
If you admit that there is some loss, right, due to the need to gain information to presumably have effective quote unquote regulation here, right, and that it doesn't have the price mechanism and competition as a means of incentive, but instead has this bureaucratic chain of employees and then uninformed voters, et cetera, right? If you admit that is an issue, but you're still saying that you can still have a net benefit, then the presumption must be one of two things. Either it would cost more money than to have a market mechanism here, which I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that, or B, that this would be a market failure, a market void. And again, I don't see how, getting back to the original situation which we're talking about, right, which is disaster insurance, that there would be some kind of fucking market void there, because there's no evidence to suggest that market void would exist.
I don't know if there is a market failure in home insurance or disaster insurance, but I'm not speaking in terms of dollars. I'm speaking in terms of utility. So I agree. If you regulate if you standardize how aircraft parts are going to be made, then you're probably going to increase the the cost of the parts of the aircraft, and you're probably going to You're probably going to cause some inefficiencies in that market, but also you're increasing the safety of airplanes, and that could be a net benefit overall.
Let's go to
the number of small airplanes that fall out of the sky every day.
Yeah, we're gonna do grid, then we're gonna do Sparky.
Oh my god!
Hold on. Yeah, so Sparky. I know Sparky's waiting to get in because he loves airplanes. It's kind of what he does here.
Market would make safer airplanes.
So, yeah, it's kind of my job. Look. There are some regulations that are actually good and actually warranted. Okay, aviation,
Socialist.
Nuclear power. These things are built on the blood of people who did the wrong thing. Okay, we got a lot of lessons learned. One of the things that you study going into aviation is the Challenger incident and how people just kind of went along with everything because they didn't want to scrub a mission because, we saw something wrong. They actually knew there was something wrong with the Challenger before it took off. And I remember watching it blowing up live on TV in my first grade class. Okay. When problems happen in nuclear power or aviation, the world pays attention, especially since we have more airplanes flying in the air right now than we probably have cars in your local city fucking driving the streets. It's insane the amount of air traffic that we have going on at any one time in any day of the year. So there are some regulations that are good. The problems when people talk about we need to lower regulations is we have a shit ton of regulatory control set in every industry, and it actually drives the price up on a lot of other things. everyone says Congress doesn't pass enough laws. Well, that's cool. Do you know all the laws that exist on the book today? Okay, doing shit just to do it isn't actually getting anything done.
Can you give an example of a regulation that just arbitrarily increased the price of something like you're describing?
Anything
Tariffs.
involving aviation.
There's
Yes.
certain licenses.
It's arbitrary.
It
Wait,
just says
you
the
can't. Hold
opposite,
on,
bro.
real quick. You can't use that as an example. I already beat that one. I already said there's a
didn't
reason
beat
for it.
it.
I already demonstrated that. So
I
try
tried to
different
beat
one.
it.
You didn't
But
license
you
it,
said
You
name
made
me a regulation that arbitrarily
Yeah, arbitrarily,
raises the
except we
price.
determined it wasn't
So I can
arbitrary.
buy.
correct?
Hold on,
Anything that has
no,
to do with
wait.
aviation.
I can actually
Also, yeah,
buy.
any aviation.
Wait, hold on. I don't want to be that
can
guy.
buy
I'm about to trigger
any
myself.
screw.
I'm about
I
to
can
trigger
buy.
myself.
Hold on, Gibbs. No, I can buy the exact same goddamn metal screw at Ace Hardware for $1.25 a pound that I will have to pay $1.25 per screw because
do you
it
know
has
it's
a little
the
FAA. Because you can actually buy the two things and you can do a metallurgic test on it and find out the composition. You
Right,
can
I
test the
understand
shear
some
strength
we're
and
going to
You
be
everything
gave
else.
testing
me the
the composition
counter-argument to
hardness. We're going
this.
to be
I'm
testing the
telling
tolerances
you-
on these things, and they're the same. But I guarantee that there are a lot of these situations. There are probably some parts where it's not the same what you get at Ace Hardware versus what you get.
No, it's not the same for every part. So what I am saying is there are some things such as your hydraulic system pumps and things like that you need to have extra fail-safe proof for aviation purposes. Yes, those should be higher cost, but certain things such as common fasteners like a rivet or a sheet metal screw or a bolt that is designed to shear at a certain amount of tension, okay, those shouldn't have that much of a disparity in cost, and that's where the actual differences are.
We're gonna go to Tyler, and then we'll go to hold on.
It's
hold
the
on.
insurance that the companies that make the parts have to carry. That's what you're missing is that if you put, and not with bolts, but like the reason that there hasn't been a major power plant change since 1970, actually closer, it's probably closer to like 1955. The reason there hasn't been a major change is because it costs so much to prove it out to the FAA to get certified. Once it's certified, they have to carry a massive amount of insurance on it. So do you understand? You probably don't, but I'll help you. If I go out and buy a new Cessna 172 today, it's $575,000. $300,000 of the cost of that plane are the insurance that Cessna has to pay for the time period that they're liable for it.
And it's running on the
Why is that a
engine
problem?
that was designed in
If it did that to
1943.
your car, you are far more likely to crash and die in. Nobody could afford a car.
Yeah, but plane crashes, I mean, come on. Like, what are we even talking about here? Plane crashes are
Five a
way
day.
more devastating.
Hold on.
Hey, bro.
I wish I could
Commercial airliner
just
crash.
come on.
Is
for
that
my
not
argument.
worse?
Time out. The only reason that's less likely that you're going to crash is because so few people are flying. If we had every retard that was driving a car flying a plane, guaranteed plane crashes would go up substantially. And then that high insurance rate would be justified because it's more dangerous. And we want to deter people from those actions through high insurance.
Also, is our
issue
issue the cost of the regulation or the regulation
Hold on.
itself? It seems to be oscillating between the two.
That was going to be my next point. It seems
Sorry.
more like what Scott was arguing was against regulations more in general, and what Crop Duster was arguing here is against overregulation on certain markets. And overregulation absolutely exists. And you ask JC for some examples. In certain states, you need to get a license to become a florist. If that's the case, a lot of people aren't going to go out and get that license to become a florist, making those florist jobs less common, making florists get paid more per the hour just based on simple supply and demand of that particular skill set, thus making the cost of florists go up. Just to fucking put flowers in a vase.
Yeah, so Tyler, just to piggyback off of what you're saying a little bit, right? Obviously, I have the more radical position here, but nevertheless, when you say, look, government spent money and towards an outcome and then achieved the outcome, therefore the regulation was good or therefore the regulation was effective. The problem is that you're not calculating whatever money was spent towards enforcing that regulation or whatever money is lost in the market and increases the prices that would have gone to other things, right? So literally every regulation that the government does is going to have an economic impact. And if it costs money to engage in this regulation, if it costs money to enforce it, and if it increases prices in this, that's someone doesn't have a job. Somebody is getting paid less somewhere in America. Some business wants to expand but doesn't quite have enough money to hire 10 more employees. So like even if you, I get that people aren't going to follow me, all the way down the rabbit hole in a giant panel and being like, sign up to be an ANCAP tomorrow, right? But just like basic, like just thinking about it, you have to understand that every single regulation, every policy. I do too, right? And I'm planting my seeds. But every policy that you have is a trade-off. Right? You are taking, like, just because you spend money on a program for a desired outcome, you can't just say, well, it is successful because the program did what we wanted to do, because you have to compare it against what would that money have done in the market without that.
We're saying that is the juice worth the squeeze, essentially, is basically where we're disagreeing right now. You're saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze because GDP could be higher, someone's income could be higher, and we're saying we don't want 13-year-olds to be employed.
Well, okay, so let's just reframe this. Let's reframe this.
That wouldn't happen anyways. But
let me reframe.
Child labor laws had almost no effect.
We've kind of.
I love child
labor laws. You're an anarcho-capitalist.
Well, all right. You know what?
Law enforcement. What is that?
Let's reframe this.
Violence and non-aggression principle, JT.
We've kind of gone down to like the little bit of the rabbit hole right here, right? So let's go back to exactly with FEMA. What do we do with FEMA right now? Like, are we like, is this a let it fail? Is this a replace it? Like what is like? Do we want this? I know outside of Fabian, who doesn't want any government, and like me, which I'm biased on what I want. It's like how do we replace this? What do y'all think? Like,
I think
do y'all in favor of scrapping it?
No, I think programs like FEMA need to be reformed, and they need to actually have like third parties do the inspections on them and do the follow up on them, and not another government agency. We need to hire a private contractor to look at the efficiency of what things that they do, because if you look at their disaster response, for the most part, their initial disaster responses are great, like hands down. They'll have water, they'll have Red Cross ready and all this other stuff, but it is the follow through where they usually drop the ball, talking about getting people money so they can, get structures tore down so they can start to rebuild and things like that. That is where FEMA usually has their big failures. Their initial responses are good. It's the rest of the response that is usually lacking. And that is policy issues. That is not incompetence, because there are people who could be more than willing to do their job properly. But the problem with government agencies is too much bloated bureaucracy. You have to do 15 steps to accomplish one task, when really you only need about 3 steps to do this. But we have to make sure that Johnny and Jim Bob and Clem and Susie all can justify their jobs, because these agencies have become overly bloated. This is why I'm not an ANCAP and more of a conservative.
You know what? Actually, you know how we could reduce the bloat of FEMA is if we just had Trump continue to tell his followers to like turn away any sort of disaster aid. Again, bringing back in natural selection into play. Then we don't have to fund it nearly as much, because only the intelligent people are going to seek disaster relief, right? There we go.
I mean, that's something.
So like I'll make the like non-ANCAP argument here, where I'm like, dissolve the state. I'll just make the argument in case of FEMA, right? I mean, FEMA is spending like somewhere between $20 and $40 billion. Like, we don't know the exact amounts because they pull money from several different sources. So it's not just FEMA funding, right? Like, oftentimes other places get that, so, like they pull money from other places for disaster relief. If we just abolished fucking FEMA and we just put $40 billion back into the market, and then people paid fucking insurance just like they do on disaster relief, there would be, number one, it would cost us less money, which would mean more jobs. But also, number two, one of the biggest problems with disaster relief is the regulations and rules around price gouging. Like, we need to allow people to fill up when they see that a fucking, some disaster is going off somewhere. We need to allow people to fucking fill up their van with cases of water and drive down to some place and go, hey, water bottles, $10 a bottle. And people go, that's evil. How dare you do that? But it is literally, it is that incentive that makes Joe Schmo sitting on his fucking couch going, I can make a bunch of money, that then moves water from one part of the country all the way to where the water is actually fucking needed. And the only people that will buy that water are people that have the means and desire to get that water, which means when charity organizations come in and like only the rich people could get water, well, now the charity organizations and, you know, the presumed FEMA that would have been there doesn't have to give water to the rich people. The rich people got their fucking water first. Those guys moved water because they had a profit desire motive to move water to those places. And now charity organizations have less that they have to do in order to successfully move resources towards disaster areas.
But FEMA
so
really
absolutely get rid of fucking FEMA.
So wait, hold
we'd
on.
have more jobs, we'd have more money, and we'd have better disaster relief, both from the private side and from individuals.
Just to be
Stuff like
clear, though,
FEMA covers an externality. A lot of these things, like disaster relief, that covers an externality that isn't naturally.
An externality that only exists because the
Or by the
government
market.
steps in and says that you're doing something
I wouldn't
illegal when
say
you bring
only.
in fucking price gouging.
well, so okay, hold on, wait. You're pro price gouging, like you're
I'm pro
okay with
price
it.
gouging. Price gouging is amazing.
Base.
Every form of
All right,
price
shut
gouging
it down.
is literally just price. Price gouging is a made-up socialist fucking term.
Big
It's
fan
just
of that.
price.
Big fan of that personally.
I
Keep
think
going.
it's
Privileged
depends
enough to say
if
that
it's
within
in-
the bounds of our like regulated market economy. I'd see how he feels about that when a charity organization has $10,000 of funds at their disposal and water is $10,000 a bottle. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to dispense that to the people that need it. But again, I don't think Fabian either cares about any of this or these are real positions. They
yeah, I
sound
think
pretty
there's a
juvenile.
difference between,
Well, yeah,
like,
it's
if
not a real
something is
position
an
that I think
elastic
that
good versus
water
an
is going to be
elastic
$10,000 and charity organizations are
Well,
going to be
how
able
would
to do
you
it.
stop
I
that? How would
explained
you
the
prevent that
mechanism.
from happening?
I explained the mechanism by which it's cheaper
Yeah,
because
you also
the profit
explained
motive
you gave
allows
me
those
the
resources to
setup for
move
what I'm
by
asking
the
you right
volition
now. You
of those
established
people.
all of that.
Hey, as a water guy, a $10,000 bottle of water is probably fucking.
It better be the best damn Fiji water
I'd
ever.
pay like
No,
$9 for a
seriously,
bottle of
Like,
like
water in 2.5 days, it's the best damn water you've ever had.
this is my problem with like ANCAP types is like what is to prevent this if rich people can afford it at $10,000 a bottle, why wouldn't they price it there? If they're selling it to people who had just survived a natural disaster, there's probably like I don't know, a few thousand, 10,000 people that need it. If only 2,000
That's
can
the
afford it, they've
real
only got 200
value.
bottles.
If some rich dude has the ability to spend $10,000 on a fucking bottle of water and some other dude makes $9,900 in profit per bottle of water, then that's the fucking price. The poor
So
people
we're
aren't going to be able to
talking
get that
about-
water.
we're talking
Absolutely.
about
But guess what's
condemning
going to
a large
happen?
portion of our
Is
labor force to starvation
what's
and
going to happen
because-
is there's a dude selling bottles of water for
Oh,
10
no, he's
grand
yelling.
and some other dude is like, holy shit, I can
Let me know
sell
when he's
bottles of
done.
water for 8 grand. And then they move in. And then someone else is like, holy shit, I can sell bottles of water for 6 grand. And what ends up happening is that
Exactly.
people keep moving water to the disaster relief area based off of a profit motive until it's no longer
Okay,
valuable to them.
That's
Hold on,
super
hold on.
awesome,
Also
dude.
a
It's what happens if the
frictionless
human
system.
body dies without water after like a week?
Hold
What
on.
happens when the
3 days.
$400 water bottle people get in there and everybody's already dead?
Hold on.
Would-
Also,
Yeah, people starve and people die, but capitalism
Hold on.
is what
Yep,
saves
okay,
the
that was
most.
not what I expected, I
Somebody,
guess.
somebody found a way
Okay,
to
so
sell
hold
water
on,
for
hold
4
on,
cents
hold
a
on,
bottle,
hold on.
but it was poisonous, and we had to wait 2 generations of people being poisoned to find out because we didn't have a regulation in place to catch that poison.
All right.
What poison were you talking about? Sorry, I was looking at the chat.
Careful.
What poison?
Careful,
Hold on,
Tucker, that
hold on,
sounded like a
hold
good
on.
point.
Water at
Do you
all
see the
because
difference?
they're not making $10,000 for that bottle of water, and everybody fucking dies.
Oh, okay. Let's go to Peter Copy real quick, because
Do you see a difference between, like, goods that are obviously, like, elastic goods versus inelastic goods? Because there are situations, right, where I can be like, price gouging, that's just the price. Like, when people complain about the price of, like, concert tickets or stuff like that, or, like, luxury items or this, that, and the other. But I do see a difference, right, in stuff like that are a luxury item, that if it's too expensive, just don't buy it, versus water after a disaster, where if you don't have it for 3 days, you literally die. So, do you see differences between these as far as price gouging? Because, like, in a lot of these situations, it would have to be a frictionless system for stuff to decrease fast enough by more people getting into the market. Because obviously, people don't act instantaneously. Like with stuff like inelastic goods, especially stuff like water.
Well, right.
we can't
So
afford to
so the
wait.
capitalists.
Okay, hold
right,
on,
so
hold on.
when
Scott,
you understand,
Scott,
hold on, I'll answer this question. Right, like.
And then
she
we're
asked
gonna
me,
go to
right,
grid, and
so
then we'll go
when
to
the
grid.
capital. So what? So you have to ask yourself, what is profit? Right, and what profit is not like, I mean, yes, you could say it's the money left over after all my things are paid for, but when you actually look and realize that there's land that goes into, in order to produce a commodity or a service, right? You need land, you need labor, and then you need investment, because there's the universal time preference, right? People want the thing they need now more than the exact same thing later. And so
Right.
what profit is, right? What profit is the reward that the capitalist gets both for investing money and also for accurately predicting the market in the future. So the profit motive is based upon moving those resources there in the future. So you're right that like it would take a day or two for Joe Schmo on his couch to realize, holy fuck, there's a disaster. I should like fill my van up with water, right? That's the kind of the entry piece, right? But there are other companies that are going to go, I can predict where disasters are likely to occur. I see a hurricane coming and I think it's going to be a bad one. So they load up the truck, even though the hurricane hasn't hit and they don't actually know how much damage the hurricane's going to do, but they're predicting that it's going to be bad. So they're already there when the hurricane occurs.
Right, that's what we do with
Yeah, and if it
gas.
doesn't do
I mean,
bad,
a
then
lot of that
fucked.
happens with gas, but stuff like gas, obviously, a lot of people get stranded. Imagine, obviously, without FEMA or any disaster relief, where this sort of similar situation was happening.
FEMA doesn't really
with-
deliver gas.
No.
I mean,
No,
like, but you can-
No, I know that. That's
like, have
not
you
what
ever-
I said. Hold on. Let me respond. I didn't say that. I said like, imagine, because like in the world where FEMA doesn't exist, the delivery of gas and the delivery of water would work similarly. There's still a lot of people who are left of that gas, right? So without FEMA to bring in water, we'd have a similar situation with water. Like being left without gas sucks, you can't evacuate as far. Being left without water sucks, you die. Like there's a difference here.
All right, so can I
So
make
if
a
you play the
couple
game,
comments
I'll
here?
very quick. Because it's very quick.
All right, go
Elite
to grid right
Dangerous,
after that.
There's a
All right,
really
so
cool
you finish.
game, Elite Dangerous. You can get stranded in Elite Dangerous, right? If you run out of gas and like you're doing exploration in the game. And because of this existence, an entire market of people that are like that are pirates that go save people were literally created in the game, where they create guilds just to go rescue people so that they can get a small amount of profit by saying like, look, we show up, we give you gas, and then you're going to give us 20% more than what the gas costs. Like this already exists in situations where you can see the market mechanism that like for-profit incentive actually fixes these problems.
All right, grid. The grid's going, and then you can go.
Yeah. So, you know who moved more people out of dangerous areas in North Carolina to start with? It was private citizens with using their helicopters, some of whom were threatened with arrest for helping people by FEMA. Okay, so don't by saying that the government's going to come help you, the government's going to come save you, and they're going to be the ones to bring the water or whatever is irrelevant. It's just the dumbest thing. It's absurd. I can't even get over how.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say that.
You
there's
mean
no
for
place
flying
private
in a
people.
closed
I never
airspace
said
without
that.
authorization?
I said that FEMA going
Hold on.
bye
A lot of
bye
things
would
just
be a
happened.
net negative.
Absolutely absurd to continuously believe that is what's going to happen. Let private citizens get involved and things get done. What
Private
Scott's saying
citizens
is
don't know-
absolutely accurate. The
Private
first
citizens
guy
don't know
that
how to
can
do
call up
disaster
and say,
relief.
Hey,
All right, so
the first guy
You're
that can get on his phone
shadowboxing.
and
I
call
never
up,
made
hold
that
on.
argument.
I know a lot of people want to
Yeah,
object.
out of
random
this
point and
fucking
then started
mess.
to
Hold on,
beat
here's what we-
someone.
I
hold on,
promise you
hold on.
that's what happened.
What does it even
Here's what we're gonna do.
mean?
Hold on. Here's what we're
You're
gonna do.
shadowboxing. I never made this argument.
I know
though. Like,
nobody
I
wants to
never
respond to
said.
that.
I'm not
I know nobody
shouting
wants.
at you. I'm just being
Oh,
loud because
I know-
everyone talks over.
I know a lot of people have objections to what he just said there. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let Tyler go first here.
He's using my tactic.
because he was wanting to go already, and I had him in line. But then I guess we're gonna go Nonfon, JC, Katya, and they all can respond to him and that because it looked like y'all had objections to what he said
That's
there.
fine.
Mine
But
was
one
the
of the-
S word, so you can skip me.
right,
I
cool.
don't believe him.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Sure,
I
perfect.
read
Easy.
the interview with that one gentleman that flew up and flew down the daughter and the mother, and then the police told him,
He was
need
just
you.
one of many.
Yeah, well, we need you out of this air zone. And the reason they gave was because they have their own helicopters in that air zone. They don't have air traffic control. They needed him out of their air zone so that they could do their job.
They didn't have any helicopters.
And we Fabian or Scott doesn't like it, but in the
That's
current
word.
system,
That's bullshit.
system, we
Every
surrender.
airplane on the fucking planet right now that flies in U.S. airspace has to have what's called ADS-B. It tells you where every other plane around you is.
That is
Every
an
single- if you take
emergency
off, you have to
situation.
have it.
They wanted him out of the airspace. That's what the
I know
guy
they wanted
said
him
in
out
the
of their
airspace.
airspace because they were afraid he was going to get hurt.
Yeah, so
He
they
was
leave
threatened by
it to the
sheriff.
experts.
He
Leave
wasn't
it,
threatened.
yeah.
All right.
That being said, this
it
was more
wasn't just him; it was several people.
This
Yeah,
is more
wait,
for
you said
Scott.
that the private helicopters evacuated more people than FEMA did. Do you have any evidence for that? Can you link
Initially,
something?
That wasn't true.
Initially,
Hold on,
I almost guarantee
Hold
that.
on,
hold on,
Another
hold
name to
on.
steal the S word,
Oh,
Nonfon.
aircraft.
Okay, be careful there.
Hold on, because you guys keep yelling over me. This is more for
I
Scott.
kind of want to know. Sure, somebody find one.
Scott, so you were talking about the market rewarding people that successfully invest in the future, and it punishes those by losing their money that don't guess how the future, which is absolutely fine. And innovation is the reason why our economy is the way it is, and the reason capitalism worked the best and won and beat the communist threat, all that stuff. But wouldn't you say that it disincentivizes investment to not have a safety net on the bottom for when people do lose in the market, it doesn't completely destroy their lives and their family starves? A safety net would ensure that. Like
Absolutely. And so you don't need a government safety net because it would be less efficient than a private market and safety net. That's why insurance companies exist.
Private
Like if you just fly helicopters and you refuse to fucking have any means by other people knowing where you are, and you run into other planes, right? Well, now you're liable for the cost of the aircraft and the deaths you caused. Okay, so people are going to be like, hey, I'm not selling you this fucking helicopter because I don't want to be potentially liable, or I'm not doing certain things, or if you want to get insurance, these are going to be your rates, etc. Right? Like you can actually analyze the risk, and individuals have the profit motive to be accurate in their risk, because the best way to make money in something like insurance is to increase your rate of profit, which means to get more customers. And the way you get more customers and higher rate of profit is by reducing prices. So the profit motive there is to reduce prices against your competitor. The government has no incentive structure beyond like a politician getting mad about a hyper specific thing most Americans don't know about, and like there are like 7 different like people in between them and this other policy. Like the incentive is basically non-existent for the state to engage in reducing prices of what it is, what forms of regulation or insurance that they engage in. Whereas the private market absolutely does. It's their competitor. So safety nets are absolutely important, right? That's why you have things like insurance. That's why you have, items or things that can lower the cost of insurance. Like if you have a really quality aircraft and have some other company inspect it that says that this is like tip top, this never falls out of the sky, and then other insurance companies, well, they're not just going to take their fucking word for it. It's not about filling out fucking a piece of paperwork at a government office somewhere. They actually put their money where their mouth is and go, do I trust this inspector because I'm investing money and I'm investing risk in this scenario, right? So I agree that those safety nets ought to exist. What I'm saying is that the private market does a better job of creating those safety nets than does the state.
So, all right, moving back to I know I'm about to turn it over to Nonfon, and then it's going to go here's the order. It's going to go Nonfon, Katya, and then we're going to have whoever go after that. But I do have a question before I turn it over to Non. So, all right, I'm not a libertarian. I do have very, very much sympathy for many of their economic views, because big fan. However, so Grid, I got to ask you.
Yeah, man.
Okay, say you're, like, just for, playing devil's advocate here. Say, like, there's a disaster area, or I don't know, a military area where we declare a no-fly zone, like I don't know, the northern Iraq.
Yeah, we have those.
Yeah, sure. We might have those in that. Say there's like a disaster in the area though, and FEMA says we don't want any helicopters coming in because we're trying to bring our shit in, whatever. Wouldn't that be a reason enough for them to like tell someone to stand down? But they didn't do that. Is that what the allegation is? They hadn't done that, and
no, they had not done that. What happened was
I'm a little confused.
And he was flying home. He saw the stranded people. He rescued, I think, 1 or 2 of them, however many he could fit in the helicopter. I think he left his son there. Flew back. The minute he landed, everything was cool, and all of a sudden, an official comes over and says, "Hey, you not only shouldn't you have done that, but you can't go back. And he said, well, I have to go back because I got to get my kid. And he was going to pick up his kid and the husband or whoever he left behind, and he thought better of it and didn't. And then he flew back. Now, that was just one incident that made the press. According to CNN, which is not the best news source, there was...
Clinton News Network.
Right. They're saying 100 volunteer airports flew more than 400 relief flights during that time period. Those are privately owned helicopters or company-owned helicopters flown by private pilots, not from anywhere else. Now, that's CNN. I know people who were part of it. I know guys that own small helicopters, and they were flying in and out of there all the time as much as they could afford to. Fuel is expensive, and helicopters use a shit ton of it. And so even small ones, even like R-22s, R-44s, things like
the
that.
amount of maintenance for every hour is insane.
Yeah. I mean, helicopters cost a shit ton to even run. I mean, I got a buddy of mine. That's all he does down in Florida. He was helping out. I'm just telling you, firsthand knowledge. There was when they started this, there was no fly zone. Period. Zero. You could fly right over the entire area, no problem. And they can't really do that without a lot of effort. The FAA can't just randomly say you can't fly here.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be random in that case because a hurricane just hit them. But all right, here's how we're going to do this. And this is how I want everybody to listen. This is how we're going to do this. It's going to be real simple because I want this all to go before we have move to the last kind of thing here for the last 15 minutes. We're going to go to Nonfon and he's going to finish, and then we're going to Katya and she's going to finish. The reason why we're doing that, and you can follow my logic, is because I know all the righties are going to want to object to everything they have to say. So we're going to let them both say it, then you can all object to everything they say at once.
Nonfon's cool. So he shocks me with his opinions.
So we're going to go to him, and then we're going to let Premier Katia go, and then y'all can yell at him. All right, and then we can have some fun. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we're going to go. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay. From my understanding, it's like all these like private helicopters, the ones that people aren't being arrested for are the ones that are like from volunteer organizations that were set up or previously existed and like FEMA, I don't want to say contracted, but allowed them to help. I think they had, my understanding is it looks like they had permission. The ones that were arrested are ones that didn't have permissions. I don't know why we would think that like random civilian people are not part of any organization or better at doing rescue efforts and don't obstruct rescue efforts by flying in an unauthorized helicopter. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that. And also, I don't know, maybe I don't want to straw man Fabian, but you guys shouldn't let him get away with saying like, oh, well, I think my ideology like causes less deaths or whatever. Like, I don't think he would care if people didn't have a social safety net and then died because that's in accordance with the non-aggression principle, and the other cases aren't in accordance with the non-aggression principle. I think he cares more about the NAP than he does about people living or dying.
What? All right.
Like saying that I wouldn't care if people died is just
wait, can you answer this? Hypothetically, let's say acting in accordance with the NAP caused one more person to die than not acting in accordance with the NAP. Would you be in favor of the NAP still?
Cause more people to die okay,
so I was right. Then what do you mean go fuck yourself?
That's not saying you're right.
You're
a
cool dude.
You're saying
don't let him get away. To be clear, Fabian, everything Fabian says is
no. You're the arbitrary metric, which is hilarious coming from a fucking utilitarian, right? Is only death here in this regard. I still care that people die. I would still try and find ways to solve human death and suffering, right? But if you could enslave 10% of the population to keep 5% of the population from dying, you'd probably fucking do it too. But I wouldn't.
Face.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Katia, go ahead.
Okay. Basically, yeah, my opinion on all of this, I feel like a lot of people like to say that, government agencies are super bad because they have flaws. I think that means a lot of the times, unless it's your, your explicit worldview, that you think that none of them should exist, which that's another discussion we can have. If we're not in that world, I think that reform is the way to go, because saying stuff like FEMA and stuff should go is absolutely crazy, because as well, like when you can talk about like, here's where they did wrong, here's what they made a mistake, here's where there was a policy problem, here's where there's bloat, this, that, and the other, we can do that all day, right? But without it, where would we be? We'd be missing a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of people that would die. There's a lot of people that wouldn't get like their immediate assistance money or directly after a disaster. I mean, in my area, right, I'm in an area where right after Hurricane Milton and Hurricane, oh my God, what was the first one? Helene. I'd be driving down the road. There's tons of people with all their furniture, all their shit lined up outside, ready to get picked up by the garbage truck because their house got flooded out. Literally, like, line after line. Like, 5 minutes away from where I live. And these people, a lot of them got their assistance checks to be able to replace the food in their refrigerator and to be able to get goods that they need to immediately get a hotel room and survive from FEMA. Without it, they might not have these things because things would cost more due to market forces right afterwards, and they would not be getting any financial assistance. So yeah, that's kind of my piece.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask you something? This is an honest question. I just and this to the all of the leftists, but mostly you, Katya, because you
I'm
were
not a
the last one.
leftist.
Yeah, I'm just
You're
a
not
left
a
winger.
Oh, I'm a
Left
liberal.
winger. Whatever.
Don't do this. No more
Don't
arguments
lump me
on
in
what
with
a leftist
socialists.
is.
I'm not.
gonna
I ain't no
kill myself.
commie, son.
I'm gonna be a
All right.
liberal.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
All right. Just
Oh,
serious
God,
question.
I'm never gonna escape this.
What have you ever taken or had government assistance?
Have I ever
Yes.
personally done so?
Yes.
In the ways that everybody has, yes.
No,
but
I've
in
taken
the ways-
disaster relief.
Disaster relief?
Disaster relief, emergency funds.
Yeah, I had to take disaster relief. My apartment
where?
burned down. I lost
I
everything.
actually haven't. I got lucky this time. If the hurricane went just 20 miles north, my house probably would have gotten 2 feet of water, and then I would have been out there with
So what was the
everybody
point you were
else.
trying to get at with this? Or were you trying to invalidate
Well,
us? Because you guys have never
I'm trying to
accessed
listen
these
to
systems.
her, and you're running your mouth again. So if you could please be quiet and let the young lady finish. Are you done? I'm sorry.
I got lucky, right? But if I didn't get lucky and the hurricane did go 20, 30, 40 miles north and my shit did get fucked, because if it did, the estimate that was that in my literal evacuation zone, I would have had 3 feet of water, 2 feet of water in my house, which would have been a situation where I would have probably needed assistance, and I would have taken it then. My street flooded. It was shitty anyways, but it wasn't that bad. So yeah, anyways, go ahead.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So I understand that I'm probably not the oldest person on the panel, but I know that I'm from a different age, and so I have a different viewpoint. Scott makes fun of me about this, and that's okay. He's able to. I remember, so my parents' house burned down. They didn't get a check from the government. The family and everyone helped them out. It was no big deal. We ended up, selling the property because it couldn't be rebuilt. There was no money to do so, and we just moved on. That's beside the point. I mean, it's kind of the point, but not really, not the main point. Also, we, back in the olden times, we regularly had power loss, floods. We don't much in Tennessee anymore because we have a great dam system that we use for hydroelectric power. We don't really have floods much anymore, but we used to, and we used to have roads washed out and all that kind of stuff. We never needed a government agency to fix any of that.
Well, hold on, Grid. I got a question for you. Hold on. Hold on. Let me.
Situation. That's
All
the
right,
point.
Hold on. It is anecdotal, but I'm just saying. I mean, but you keep saying that without government assistance, everybody would be
I want
in
you to
trouble.
clarify
Did I
something.
say
before you
everybody?
said that?
Can we
Hold
go
on,
back
hold on,
and
hold
see
on.
where I said everybody?
Hold on. I want Grid to clarify something first, though. All right,
Yeah, good.
So, all right. There's a difference between need and want and all these kind of things. I'll agree with that. Sure. Let me give you a hypothetical.
Sure.
Say, you have some land. somewhere. I don't know. Just
I feel like I know where this is going.
you have some land.
Hold on, I can't hear him.
It's just you have some land. Hypothetically, doesn't matter where it's at, and somehow, by no means of your own, it was damaged, and the area was declared a disaster. Now, I don't need the government to come in there, but if I have the ability to, I'm absolutely going to fucking take that goddamn money because I've been paying fucking taxes. All these other fuckers have been getting my fucking tax dollars, and you'll be damned if when it's time for me to get some money, Papa Gibbs ain't got to get his hand out too. Now, that being said, I don't like the idea of this in general. So, like, are you saying you wouldn't take the money if, like, say, the government was like, hey.
So I've never taken unemployment. I've never taken a
But
draw.
okay, so you wouldn't take if a tornado destroyed half of your property, you wouldn't take a check from them.
I've never taken anything from the government that they didn't owe me.
Ah, there we go.
And by owe me, I mean tax
There we
refunds.
go. Okay, well, they owe me.
Wait.
We're testing you, so if you qualify for age,
just
they
real
owe you
quick.
it. Yes.
Real quick, and I know it kind of like
Never take
it's
anything they didn't
circling-
owe me either. Then in that case,
I know it's kind of circling, right? But I just want to address real quick what Katya said, that, my position was crazy because, people were going to die if we got rid of FEMA. I think I kind of already highlighted and showed why the market would be better at responding than FEMA and means by which it could. So as one of those, so I just kind of reject that unless she has evidence for that, because I gave ways in which the market could respond to that. But I also kind of want to point out that there have been several studies that show that, like, for every 1% unemployment, somewhere between, one 1982 study showed like 37,000. Other studies showed, upwards of 50,000 people die, right? People die from heart attacks. People die from suicide. People die from drug overdoses. So when you take money out of the market that has a downward pressure on economic growth, you're necessitating some level of death. Now, at the same time, those are individual deaths. Other studies have shown that economic downturns actually reduce excess mortality because people can't afford to eat and they lose weight and have less obesity. People can't afford to smoke cigarettes, so they have lower rates of cardiovascular disease and heart attacks and things of that nature. So
no one
again, when you say like people are going to die, and I say, well, there's market mechanisms for this, right? You have to understand that the economy is really fucking complicated. And, when we're talking about where money goes and where it is, ROI and all of this other shit, you have to know without a doubt, it is just true that every dollar that the government takes from you is a dollar that is going to a less valued means, which means it is less responsive to the individual values and desires of the economy and causes economic downturn, which causes deaths.
Okay, no one engages this. No one engages this because there's nothing that you could ever show Fabian to have him believe that FEMA is better at disaster relief than the private market, because he has logically deduced from human action that the private market is always better no matter what, and it's a gobbledygook sentence if you even utter the word FEMA is better at disaster relief than the private market. There's nothing you could ever show him about it. He rejects all empiricism completely.
Well, make your argument.
So just for housekeeping,
don't just bitch about it. Don't just bitch that I know that I'm right and I stand by it. Like, actually make an argument.
Gibbs, the reason I say I don't take anything they didn't know me is because if they didn't steal my fucking money through taxes, they wouldn't fucking owe me a dime.
Just say
I wouldn't take a fucking dime from them.
I thought we were on the same page.
Nonfon explained why Fabian would never listen to an argument, and then Fabian said, give me an argument.
He doesn't care. We've already talked about empiricism.
So here's what we're going to do. I know that Sparky's been waiting a while. I'm going to let Sparky go, and then I'll let Katya go, and then we're going to go to open. We're going to go, because that seems like a good mix of righties and lefties to close. And then we'll go to, we'll just do, y'all can do closing statements and shout out where y'all are at. All right, go ahead, Sparky.
All right, so first of all, Grid One, you're talking about TVA, the only for-profit government agency that exists when you're talking about the hydroelectric dams. So I used to live over in the Chattanooga area.
Kind of Amtrak too.
No, they are government subsidized. I don't believe they actually make a profit. I'm talking about the only profitable organization in the United States.
Oh, profitable! I thought you said for profit.
We export power.
Yes, but that's because of your nuclear power, not your hydroelectric. But when it comes to organizations that have done better work that are privatized than the federal government, I offer you the Cajun Navy. They have been more successful than any other group as far as saving people from disaster relief areas than the United States government. The U.S. government fucking sucks at it. But I will tell you that FEMA does some good. I have received some aid, like during Hurricane Elena in 85, 86, when it hit my hometown. They actually delivered food and water to us where no one else could get to us, because a lot of the interstate passages were shut down, because when you build shit on water and water comes through and washes it all out, sometimes you need the logistical power of the federal government in order to get things to you. Grateful for them, but I will tell you, in the long run, in the follow through, they failed a lot getting money to people. It takes a lot of time. Where Katya will sit there and talk about people that were saved through FEMA by getting the money. Well, the reason why people bring up things like North Carolina is because they went over budget, saving your area, and ran out of money for North Carolina. So it was poor policy. It was poor planning, piss poor planning, giving them piss poor performance in North Carolina. So these are issues that happen, and it is ridiculous to think that your government agencies that work on a no profit model, that work on a complete no one's held accountable for anything because of the way government works, that can't be a great model. And yet again, I'll say it again, the DoD has not passed an audit, the past 7 audits, and there are billions of dollars missing. Where's the accountability? Who's getting fired? No one. That's the actual deal. There is no accountability in government. Hate to break it to you.
Gotcha. And then we're going to go to closings after that.
Right. What I'm going to say about this is, so when I was talking about people getting money due to FEMA and stuff like that, I was mainly talking, right, like, obviously the long-term assistance that is more dependent on your personal situation does take a lot longer to get to you, and that does suck when there's so many people who are trying to take advantage of the system, like what we've gotten with these unprecedented hurricanes, right? Like, we did not think that Helene would go so far up and flood places so far north. Like, that was crazy. It's not like that we went over budget because all the money was spent on Florida. A lot of the situation with Florida was like happening at pretty much the exact same time as we're talking on, like, you know, governmental assistance scale as everywhere else, considering, you know, we were hit, then they were hit like within a day or two. But what I was talking about more was the I believe it's $750 immediate assistance that people can get with only a few questions asked for stuff like replacing the food in their fridge, for stuff like putting their gas in their car, for stuff like, you know, if they need to stay in a hotel room for a night or two to be able to get out of a place that is uninhabitable. Stuff like that, people have gotten access to in a way that they would not have access to without this government assistance. I understand that there are flaws, and I understand people don't get what they need fast enough. The fact that people are still, you know, without clean water, without their homes, it's awful, and I totally get that. But obviously, it's also just, in general, a difficult thing to deal with when you talk about an unprecedented situation, and we talk about so many people who are experiencing mass tragedies on these scales. And I feel like, you know, if climate change is to be believed, which, yeah, it is, these things are potentially going to obviously get worse over time. So we need to be prepared for those things, and getting rid of these government agencies is not the way to do it. Yep, there we go. Anybody else want to talk? Go ahead.
Yeah, so before we do that, I'm going to turn it over to closings here in 1 second. I'm going to do a shameless show for all of us that are streaming, because this is a fun conversation. I know that all of us here, we all like to talk politics, and politics, I don't know if you know this, but thanks to certain individuals, they've made politics not very ad-worthy, which is really hurting our bottom line. So if you like this kind of stuff, donate to your streamers. That helps them do more of this. Other than that, I got nothing. Moving on, let's go to Tyler. We'll let you start us off with closings. Tell you who you are, where you're at, and do what you want. Closing thoughts.
Tyler, average debate enjoyer. Currently, I'm at the streets of Tarkov. Oh, and a scav run getting shot at. That all being said,
I'm glad that we're your focus. I
was more just listening to everybody. That being said, I've heard a lot here about how government sucks at things, and you can give plenty of examples that they do, absolutely. But at the end of the day, all these groups we talked about have a higher approval rating with the general public throughout the last 5-6 decades. So I would say generally these things are working for most people. I'm somebody that was in Georgia for the hurricane recently. FEMA did great for me. Government functions did great for me. I enjoyed them. So, that being said, in terms of accountability, absolutely there is room for government accountability and less regulation. That's what Trump is running on. If you voted for him, good for you. You found the right way to get rid of those things and to change them. So hopefully he does those for you and you're happy with that. But at the end of the day, I think also Scott made some good points. Every regulation does come with a cost. And that needs to be put into every single time we're talking about a regulation. It can't just be we're doing this for X, Y, and Z. But X, Y, and Z is also important. And there's a lot of good regulation out there that we want in place to catch before things actually make their way to the market. So that all being said, I like everyone here. Hopefully nobody got offended by me. And you're all great people. I love you.
Oh, you're so sweet. All right. And this is Aircraft Sparky.
Government sucks. Political streaming sucks. I do enjoy it, but I'm leaving it because it fucking sucks. I'll be doing music whenever all that's set up. I'll announce it, and yeah, we'll go from there. Look, when it comes down to it, I don't want to abolish government by any means. I want to limit government. The problem is our government is overbloated. That's why it's corrupt. That's why there are so many waste in it and everything else, because there is absolutely no way for any small work group to be able to keep track of what's going on. Everything is way too big. I work in one of the largest segments of federal government. I work in defense. I work for the United States Air Force. I train people how to do heavy maintenance on aircraft. It's a great job. It is something that I love to do. I also mod private aircraft on the side. So when Grid One talks about the cost of maintenance for standard privatized aircraft, first thing that runs into my head is, hey, that 60-hour compression check, man. Every time you have to do one on your 175, I know how much that costs you just to have the maintenance done, not to even have the QA guy come behind you and give him his stamp. So I understand the woes of private ownership of aircraft. And it is because of the overregulation of aviation why we have these issues. Personally, I would love to see standard bolts and things able to be more affordable for the private owner, but keep things like the engine, the thing that actually keeps the thing in the air, you can still keep the same regulations on it. It's just the minuscule details, the nitnoid and nitpick. More regulation is bad. Less regulation tends to allow for better improvements in things. The market will find answers to these things. I'm Aircraft Sparky. Thank you all, and it was fun, y'all.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Also, before we move on to the next person that's give an outro, you'll see this person tomorrow debating. Our first guy, though, Tyler, terrible fucking promo guy. He didn't tell anybody about his show tomorrow, and I know Fabian would have, but I wanted to call Tyler out because that went by, and I let it slide.
I did on Twitter.
Yeah, 7:30 tomorrow. We're going to be having our first semifinal matchup of our debate championship series tournament, and it's going to be Fabian Liberty versus Average Debate Enjoyer. So it should be very analytical and whatnot. I'm excited. It should be a good even matchup. So on that note, Fabian, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Fabian Liberty. You can find me on YouTube or X predominantly. I'm on a bunch of other shit, but I'm never really there, so that's where you should follow me if you want to watch me stream and stuff. And yes, I will be here. I will be back on Gibbs's channel tomorrow to debate Average Debate Enjoyer at 7:30 Central, which is a silly time. All right, it's Eastern, 8:30 Eastern. All right, where the nation's capital is, where more population is,
I looked at
where the New York Stock Exchange is, like all the important shit in our country, other than the GDP that's over there in California.
All the shit that you don't want to exist is there.
You're absolutely right, motherfucker. Well, I don't mind the New York Stock Exchange.
Listen, I consider all my conservative friends very intelligent individuals. I know some here on the left will dispute that, but it's amazing. I looked at my analytics the other day, and I have a 45% viewership rate, the highest of any group. Even in America, it's all from the UK. And if them dumbasses in the UK can figure out what time Central Time is with that time zone difference, there's no excuse for all y'all.
6 hour difference. It's a 6 hour difference. Yeah.
East Coast is the most American time, by the way.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know about all that.
So just in closing,
don't tell me the
obviously squatters' rights are are not a fucking thing. You can homestead property, if it's abandoned, and it needs to be, I'll say it again since Gibbs loved it so much, intersubjectively communicated that you have abandoned the property. And in terms of this government spending and FEMA and stuff like that, I'm not mad at the lefties here. I'm more mad at the righties here. This is what always gets me so mad, because the right will say, like, the left thinks government's great and government can step in and do these things, but it's just a couple of problems. But it's the righties here that go, look at how every single time government does regulation, it makes things more expensive and the market will find a way. And then the next thing they say is, but we need some regulation, right? Even though I just said that the market would absolutely make it cheaper and would find a way. I don't fucking get it, man. But to the left, all right, listen, I get that you're not going to get on board with me with the economic calculation problem or the local knowledge problem or, explaining the economics here because you just fundamentally disagree with those axioms. So just one little thing, all right? When we're talking about government that you think is doing such a good job, did you forget that James Clapper went before Congress and lied in 2013? Did you forget that he lied to the American public and Edward Snowden proved that he lied through his fucking teeth? And then what did he do after that? That source that you think is good, CNN, he got a fucking job in 2017 at CNN and gets paid there and still is working there and is still working there in 2025. Okay, for fucking 8 years after lying to you all and saying that the NSA doesn't collect any data and that's all bullshit and that they don't collect any of your information, they don't listen to any of your calls or your emails. So if you recognize that these people don't go to jail, if you recognize that these people are above the law, if you recognize these people that they're lying to you through your teeth, why do you trust they're not? And you recognize, as Aircraft Sparky said, that the motherfuckers can't ever pass an audit. Why do you trust their figures? Why do you trust their data? Why do you trust that they're doing anything? Please, for the love of God, bring the market back. Allow the state, I know the ANCAP is saying this, allow the state to be able to prosecute fraud and prosecute companies and give them that focus instead of bullshit like FEMA, okay? Get rid of these socialist regulations that are causing the forest fires to be exacerbated in California. Get rid of the fucking price gouging and get the government out of shit like this because the market would do a better job. And don't trust these fucking 3 and 4 letter agencies. When the fuck did you stop being so based? When the fuck did you become nothing but simps for disgusting lying politicians just because you think they're doing something good? Look at yourself in the fucking mirror and realize that you're nothing but a bootlicker and come on over to the right side, the right-wing libertarian side.
Nah, we'll stick with the majority.
That was awesome.
Good. Have fun following that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, good. Yeah, because you get to.
It's not fair, Gibbs, making me follow that guy.
Yeah, well, that happens. I'm going to tell you.
I mean, everything Fabian said, except, all the 3-letter agencies need to go away. They just do. States should have absolute authority in their states. There shouldn't be any of this nonsense. FEMA, I mean, I get it. You want the white knight coming in on the horse rescuing you, but the truth is you're not a princess. Nobody gives a fuck. So just suck it up, do it yourself, or learn to do it yourself. And if you can't, find somebody that will, because you know what? There's a church on every corner. There's a helping hand around every corner that you turn in life if you just look for it and you're not a complete tool belt. I really don't have much to say on the first subject because fucking Liberty he was a man from Liberty Valance. He just fucking crushed that shit. And really can't say much more than I agree. Less government is way better. They fuck everything up. And that's about the size of it.
All right. Thank you so much. Nonfon.
Yeah, well, I love talking to all y'all. If you liked what I had to say, you can check out my YouTube channel. You can watch over a ton of my debates on Nonfon. I know enough one. I'll end with a simple quote, okay? It is the libertarian who is committed to the grand claim that for some reason, intervention must always be avoided. The piecemeal social engineer, as Popper called interventionists, can concede a presumption in favor of private property while reserving the right to whittle away at its excesses. By means of state action, she faces no obligation to disprove the overall utility of property rights. The utilitarian libertarian, however, is obliged to show that the utility property rights is so nearly universal that all government intervention with them is bound to fail when judged against a standard of human happiness. Fabian doesn't actually care about evidence. No one should engage with him on evidence because he's already logically deduced everything from human action. The rest of the conservatives presumably care a little bit about evidence, but apparently they've never opened Greg Mankiw and looked at the cases of market failure that do exist and do require either regulation or state intervention. Again, I stream at Nonfon 420 on Twitch, Nonfon on YouTube. Go check me out.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go with JC.
Yeah. So I know that we're all, we've had, some of us on the panel are fairly anti-government regulation, but to Fabian and Motorsports, I would like to say that the U.S. regulated pharmaceutical companies here in the States have produced some fine antipsychotic medication. And given the fact that both of you at separate times tonight were arguing against like complete invisible strangers with arguments that you seem to conjure out of thin air, I would highly recommend that you seek out and make use of these at the most immediate possible time for you. All in all, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get to scream at lefties about squatting rights because I am going through some shit in my personal life dealing with that, so I'm feeling a bit frustrated, but hey, it was fun. I'm the big JC. I am a professional League of Legends streamer. I'm not, but I stream on YouTube and I yell at people there too.
Fantastic, thanks so much. And Premier Katya, I know you've been recovering from the vid, so I appreciate you coming and joining us tonight.
Yeah, I'm recovering from the vid, and then I got a sinus infection, so that I lost my voice for like a week, but I am back.
It's those lefty genetics.
I don't know if it's the lefty genetics, but you know what? It's the fact that I have autoimmune disorders. But those are not technically, well, some of them are genetic. Oh, damn, maybe it's my lefty genetics.
Leftism is an autoimmune disorder.
True. Yeah. We're gonna forgive that side of the family. That's super right wing, but genetics aside, because like that's a whole other topic. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. It's nice to talk to you guys. It's been a while since I was on a debate panel. I was gonna have like debate panel like withdrawal syndrome, which is a thing now that I just invented. Yeah, I already said pretty much everything I wanted to say about the topic when I kind of spoke before we did closing statements. So I'm just gonna say y'all are great. Love talking to you guys. I'm Premier Katya on both X and Blue Sky, so hi.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, in closing, I appreciate you all being here. It's fun stuff as always. And I gotta say one thing. Listen, if the government is offering handouts for any kind of property damage, them fuckers better come find me first. That's all I'm saying. And I want my goddamn checks. That's it.
As soon as you said, let's say you have some land, I was like, oh no.
I'm just like, these motherfuckers.
You gotta get rid of that. You got to get rid of that Trump sign in your yard and put like an immigrants and refugees welcome here.
But you know what happened if I do that? You know how many cattle get eaten? Like the day after I put that up, I would be out of business. You think it'd be that time? I'll tell you what I will do next time. Just go put like a Beto sign out there, or a Kamala sign. That'll probably maybe get me some of that government repair money. No, it's awful. Yeah, but that's great. Thanks for coming. It's good stuff. I don't know. I was hoping we'd have some more pushback on that first topic, but didn't bite. And but luckily, the fires gave us enough memes today to have a good panel. I'm pretty excited about that.
If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.